right. I can now go live on Instagram. Get that taken care of. Perfect. All Blacks, they've won both of their games, right?
I knew it. Yep.
Very close games with England, but they won.
Yeah. Well, England has that. England had their better shot to beat them in the first game because we have a new head coach and they won by a try and a conversion. So the All Blacks are only gonna get better. I mean, every game they're only gonna get better. Like I said, like out of all the countries, New Zealand has the first pickings of the best crops of very skilled players. But
Mm,
it's a bit harder now. Still, people are going overseas, but it's still. I I think a lot of them still have the first choice because I think a lot of the Polynesian players, if they can, and New Zealand's economy and the pay is good enough, they can still be close to home. That's another advantage for New Zealand. Most
yeah,
of the guys will stay. It's the ones who really want to make big splash, and the other clubs are willing to pay like Piutao kind of close money.
yeah,
They'll
make
go.
money. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and that's the thing is, as New Zealand is finally feeling a little bit of that pain.
Yeah, they're playing. They're having another test in San Diego, Fiji this week, I think. So
In San
that's
Diego.
another. Yeah, San Diego against Fiji. That's another thing too. I don't put that these test matches. They're boring, man. It's like you play for nothing.
Dude,
It's like an exhibition match. I'm like, even the whole test matches. I don't know why I wouldn't. The only reason why I would go to those test matches if I had people like guests, if you were over somebody just to take to an All Blacks game. But if it's just a regular thing, I would not go. To me, it's just a nice practice until they get to the World Cup and then they start making their
yeah,
selection.
then you take it
Yeah,
seriously.
yeah.
Interesting. All right, let me see. I think the Patreon. Let me get that Patreon. Should be going. So I think we're good. I think we are running. All right, man. Let's get our intro video here going. Welcome everybody to another live digital Kava session for the Polynesian Eyes podcast. We're gonna start here in a short second. We'll start with our intros and then we'll get into it.
Let's go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live stream podcast for the Polynesian Eyes podcast here. Going live on Facebook, YouTube, Patreon, Instagram, X, or on Twitter. Hello, Mr. Aotearoa. Masi, how are you and how is the day going for you?
Thank you, Tua. Doing pretty good. Friday here in New Zealand time. Getting dark pretty fast. It's only 5:30 and just barely light outside. Still a little bit cold. It's our kind of cold, windy, rainy season in New Zealand. But overall, it's good. It's Friday. Fridays are always good. But how you doing? How's your day?
Not bad. Friday for me tomorrow. Good day at work. Finished off at around 5 p.m. Been watching the RNC. Busy time.
Mm,
It's politics season here in the U.S. So was keeping an eye. Had an opportunity to see Uncle Donald
mm.
do his thing, and also just the convention overall. Any thoughts, Mussy? Were you able to catch any of the convention, and what's kind of your initial thoughts there?
I've been watching the RNC and working at the same time. But I've watched all most of the speeches, and I'm currently up to Donald Trump. I just barely finished Dana White's
Hmm.
speech. So overall, the talks were really good. I really enjoyed Vivek's speech. I also enjoyed Hulk Hogan's speech, the entertainment and stuff. I really, really enjoyed that, and I think those are the only two. I did enjoy the speeches from um, what is it? Some of the fallen militaries, the 13 families who did come,
in
eh,
Afghanistan withdrawal.
yeah, Afghanistan withdrawal, and explaining
Really
their
sad.
stories. How, yeah, they haven't been even acknowledged by the current administration. So that one was powerful. I enjoyed a different view because this convention was a bit different. With they had what's that, like model girl, Amber Rose, and had a different kind of twist, and that is a good sign of the party. At least our view and perspectives are being taken into to a certain demographic and a certain uh, people that have different parties that have been voting another party maybe all their lives, and she's gonna be a big help because she's a big influence in that world.
On
So
social
it's
media.
social media. So some good stuff. Good stuff to see where the party's heading
No,
to.
no, 100%. It is not your grandpa's convention, right? Your Republican
Mm,
convention. That was one of the things that really caught my attention. It's a lot more entertaining. It's a lot more inspiring.
mm,
It seems a lot of new talent and new potential leaders, like you said, Vivek. A lot of young people speaking. Definitely, people speaking that are not from the typical
yes,
old school Republican.
yes.
We had your evangelical Christian speakers as
Mm,
well, but like you were saying, they brought in a bunch of those college guys that protected the flag. You
yes.
brought in
Oh,
Kid
that one was good.
Rock,
Yeah.
and so yeah, a lot of different types of people. It's going to be definitely an interesting season. Hey, Javier,
Hello,
welcome
Javier.
back. Good to see you
Dua, how
again
about
here, Togo.
Dua, how about that other one I forgot to mention that I enjoyed, that union leader boss, Teamsters? That was an interesting talk, and
In very interesting.
he did open my eyes on, yes, the workers are creating that union because I've always thought of that bad, but then he's also kind of giving me an understanding on multi-corporate, like the corporate big companies. They do their own kind of union thing to kind of, that's not good because like he did bring up a certain phrase that was very powerful, that these multi-corporate organizations that are super super like mega big, they, they
Yeah,
they don't have a reliant on any nation. And he brought a good point. It's all for just the company, because they can reside anywhere. And that's
yeah,
why, and those are the companies I believe are pushing this globalism around the
yep.
world. So
No,
that was an interesting
100.
take.
No, and that is, and I think unfortunately, conservatists kind of empowered the business sector to be like that, right?
Mm,
Where we've kind of just let them, we just free trade, blah, blah, blah. But really, we grew some monsters that now all of a sudden you start
mm,
to see that the union, hey, may have a point, right?
yeah,
These like Amazon's like the 11th, if it was its own country, the 11th largest
yeah,
economy in the world,
mm,
right? Like, I mean, that these are, we have to start thinking there needs to be a shift in the way we approach business organizations. I mean, it's credit. It's a sign of how much we've progressed as
mm,
human beings, right? That we can have entities that are not governments, that or religions, right? Because usually those were the two big
mm,
entities. Government and religion were the two powers that were. That's why a lot of people say, separation of government and
mm,
church. But now we're looking at businesses basically being another power structure
yeah,
that we have to figure out how to interact with and get under control. Because, like you said, the Teamsters union president made a very powerful point. Like,
mm,
these entities are basically nations, and they don't
yeah,
have loyalty to America,
no,
right? They
no,
have
yeah,
loyalty to their own stuff. I mean, it's very interesting. And that
mm,
was what made this convention very interesting. New
yes,
ideas, speakers from areas that, I mean, I can't ever remember a major union president speaking at a GOP
convention,
convention,
yeah,
you know?
mm,
So, yeah, very interesting. And then, Uncle Donald got up there in 90 minutes, man, with a part of his ear missing. He's up there for 90 minutes.
ah,
So
he's a
pretty,
kill. He's
pretty
like the
intense.
killer instinct, man.
Hey, and I don't know if a lot of people on the viewers and the listeners, a lot of rumors going on that Sleepy Joe is going to pull out. I even
But
saw on Newsmax they're already reporting. They're
yeah,
already reporting that
yeah, they
Joe
said.
Biden's pulled out.
Oh yes, yes, I did see that that article, and there's some other news outlets who are even referencing that by the end of the weekend it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
Like it's
and
close.
you know what's crazy? You can't help but think now that the assassination attempt failed,
Didn't work.
right? That was like maybe the last ditch effort to save Sleepy Joe. But now that that's not going on, they're basically they know for a fact now it's like we got to do something different since
Mm,
that failed. Which the whole I don't know if any of the viewers are following that assassination attempt is getting weirder and weirder and weirder. The more information comes out, they're showing videos of the shooter 30 minutes before just walking around the building, right? They're saying that over an hour earlier, the threat was identified.
mm,
They were there. The building that the shooter was on top of was the staging location for the counter sniper, right? For
mm,
certain things. I mean, they're just, and then what, 2 minutes before the shots were taken, people were yelling, there's a guy
yeah,
on the roof with, I mean, there's just crazy,
yeah.
crazy stuff. Like, there's just
Yeah.
a lot of questions.
The only one I heard was kind of funky that there was a police officer who did climb up
Hmm.
just maybe a couple minutes, and then the rifle was pointed at him, and he didn't have his gun on him or whatever, and then he went back down, and then the shots went after that. It was
Yeah.
just weird. I was like, why is a police officer not having his gun with him could take away the threat right then and there? I don't know. It was weird.
Well, and then once he goes up there and the guy turns the gun on him, why in the world aren't there
You,
calls? Get
yeah,
him down, get him out. There's a guy with the gun. I mean,
yeah,
fishy,
very
fishy,
fishy,
fishy.
very fishy. And I do hope that when I don't know, to be honest, because of the current administration and how the justices work right now, we probably won't find an answer until next year to what really happened. I feel like this could be dragged out and until Trump gets in to kind of clean up, clean up house and figure out the truth. But yeah,
Yeah. I mean, very, very interesting. I mean, here's a comment right here. Let it be a color shooter. Yep. Yeah. Let it be a color shooter. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's just a lot of interesting things going on, and we'll have to see how everything plays out. I will say this, man. It just wasn't Uncle Donald's time, man. Because
mm,
literally, from the moment they did the analysis, from the moment the guy pulled the trigger
eh,
to when Uncle Donald turned his head,
yep,
he had to turn his head right as the shot happened, right? And if he didn't turn his head, the perfect kill shot apparently is in the back of the head, and Uncle Donald would have been done for.
jeez,
um, you know what, Mussy? I want to talk about some of your experience with the Polynesian youth, and I did
mm,
come across a video that's somewhat related to it, and I wanted to get your thoughts, kind of like an intro
mm, mm.
to it.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
And I'll show you the video, and then it's I seen this guy before, and he was talking. I think he lived in Tonga for a while.
Oh yes,
Um,
he lived in Tonga. I think he started off with serving his mission in Tonga. But before that, I know Cameron. I know this guy pretty well. He was like a year or two younger than me. We went to school at Provo High School, and
oh, he's
yeah,
from Provo. Oh, you know
yeah,
him, Mussy?
yeah, yeah. I know him. I know him. And then hey, Malo Clyde Moore.
Clyde Moore, Malolere, man. Welcome to the digital Kava session.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I mean, I heard him talking about the story, and I didn't know you knew him, Mussy.
Yes. So Provo, and then he went on his mission to Tonga, and then I think he went to like BYU Hawaii. He's got in contact with that. He's gotten interested in Tongan history
Okay.
and Polynesian history and Tonga history, and then I think he went back to Wava'u and specifically to kind of stay there and do some business ventures and stuff. And he came back to America, and that's kind of the last thing I've kind of
Hmm.
know about him. So and then he finished from BYU, and then maybe he's in Utah or somewhere. But yeah.
Sweet. Well, let's jump into this video here because he does give a discussion on Polynesian youth. Oh yeah, way. What up, Bears, man? That's what you were supposed to bring. That's what you were supposed to bring, Toko. Yeah, way. But yeah, let's listen to what he has here about a statistic he shares, and go from there.
So I don't know how if people are very aware of this, but suicide is a big problem in the Pacific.
Yep.
I think Pacific Island youth, be it, I'm not quite sure if it's in the Pacific or just diasporically, have 3 times the suicide rate of the world average.
Wow.
And so when I was in, and so that's just a small part of it too, because those are the kids who it gets bad enough to kill themselves. But that doesn't include all the kids who are so bored or have nothing to do that they drink and go crash into a tree, driving 80 miles an hour, which happened all the time. Christmas Day, my first area, I think five kids died in Tomololo. One of them, I actually knew his younger brother. And that was everywhere. Everywhere I went, we attended funerals of young men.
Wow.
Because they had either committed suicide, gotten in a fight. So I don't know.
What are your thoughts on that, Masi? Has that been what you've observed, your experience? Just wanted to see. That was interesting. That's my first time hearing that kind of statistic on Polynesian youth.
Yes. See, he kind of brought up with Tonga. Growing up in Tonga, I didn't know what suicide was. I don't know if it's gotten bad as of recent, but I don't know if Tonga. I've always thought Tonga it wasn't that bad. Maybe because we're in our area, maybe in certain areas in town or outside.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. I don't know. What's your experience? Me growing up, I never heard of suicide. I didn't hear.
I heard of it was it was big news when that happened, right? Tanakita, and I don't remember it being so pervasive, but I mean, for a small population, you have a couple people do it. Yeah, you know what I mean? You played the percentages. That's why I'm like, maybe that's true. But what I did notice, which is kind of weird, and it always happened in Tonga, whenever one kid did it, you would get 2 or 3 or 4 more that would be short. It would be all lumped together, and then all of a sudden, then you would never hear about it, right? And then it'll be a few years. It's that's the only observation I can kind of give. But once again, I was a little kid. I wasn't paying attention to what was going on, really. You know what I mean? But I just don't remember it being such a big problem. But I don't know if because he makes it sound like it is in Tonga, but that wasn't my experience. But I left Tonga in 2002, 2001. So
Yeah.
Not 2000, 2001. So
we came, we left 2002.
Things could have changed significantly since we left.
Yeah, I mean, even when I went back to Tonga 2019, I didn't hear it as it being a thing, but I do know in Hawaii it's an issue for Polynesian youth. It was an issue, especially in our kind of area in the North Shore side, was an issue, and New Zealand, same thing. It's an issue amongst young people, and to me, a big contribution to that is probably the 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 tough financial life that many Pacific people kind of go through when you immigrate. Different culture, different way of doing things. Mom and dad are probably working multiple jobs at the same time. Those multiple jobs are happening. They're still doing their Tongan duties of fatongia and their responsibilities in church, their
In New
responsibilities to
Zealand
their
and in Tonga, double
yes,
whammy now.
Yes, same thing in Hawaii, kind of all these. So when you get all of these things, and this is the funny thing I always say. I know many of our people go overseas for that opportunity, but once they get over here, I don't think they really understand because they've already made the sacrifice to get here. I love it. Really opens their eye how difficult it is to how the expense to pay for your house now, the expensive to get your kids school uniforms and everything,
Hmm.
and then not only that, then when you're seen as overseas, the amount of your and it could be maybe your families wherever they may be in the islands because you know where you came from. A lot of people are moving away because they want a more materialistic better life for their family, and then they have that self pressure to try to provide, and that trickles down to the kids. Probably there's some social dynamics that are affecting the kids and stuff, and a lot of the kids are probably put pressure to do well and perform well and get caught up in some wrong friends or some bad habits, and you get to a very self-depressing stage. And I know in New Zealand the Polynesian population, especially the Tongan Samoans, very very young. I think the average is like 23 years old, 21, like.
Wow.
So it's a very young population still trying to navigate the complexities of moving away, and your family still trying to integrate to their society. So I know it's a huge issue, especially. See, I don't know. See, that's the first time for me here in the islands that I thought it was an issue. I didn't, where we grew up in Mu'a and even some of the Hage side. I did. It was a rare thing. I didn't hear it too much in school too. So unless it's changed, but yeah, that's kind of my insights to that.
No,
Going.
100%. Couple comments here to catch up, Mussy, before we kind of continue. Mo said Trump had too much kava. Worst speech ever.
Oh.
I kind of know what you're meaning a little bit, Mo, because it wasn't Trump's typical energy, but I still enjoyed it, but it wasn't his typical energy. He kind of had to build up into it because it was, you could tell he was kind of emotional for the
Yeah.
typical Trump. I
Yeah.
guess, almost getting assassinated and having your ear shot
Well, he
off
Trump.
can have
Yes.
that impact.
Well, Trump did also let everyone know that his speech was not the same, and he just changed instantly what he was gonna say. So that's probably played
Yeah.
a big part of
Yeah,
it.
that's what Mo's mentioning. Yeah, I agree. Can't argue with that, but I still enjoyed it just because it was just great to hear from him, just to know the guy's still alive, still fighting. A
Mm,
couple comments here that's interesting because you were mentioning the financial burden, Masi. So theoretically, from a financial perspective, if we take away from Tonga in Tonga, or if we take away the money away from Tonga and Tonga, can the people in Tonga? No, no, the Tongan economy will collapse. My latest understanding. I'll give this response and then I'll look up the trade deficit, Mussy, while you give your thoughts.
mm,
But
mm.
right now, if the remittances do not go to Tonga, because Tonga has such a huge trade deficit, we import way more than we export, the Tongan economy will literally belly up and fall apart. That's my understanding. And I think that's what you're referencing for to Javier. But Masi,
Mm.
any thoughts of that while I look up the Tonga trade deficit?
Yeah. To me personally, I do still think the people can still survive. The thing is, the materialistically, electricity, like the whole economy, will probably won't be able to survive. But I think the people in Tonga will still survive. I think the perfect.
Yes.
I did speak, not speak, did talk with Danny. He did mention during the whole pandemic that was Tonga was shutting down its whole country. He said more people were actually going to their farms and farming their land because money was not the same. Families overseas were struggling to send money, so actually a lot of people went back to like their lands and kind of farming for food. But yeah, that's if yeah, it's the money
I
and stuff is more
yeah.
of your having all the good stuff, all the materialistic stuff, and improving the lives of their family. But yeah, and economic wise, I don't know if Tonga would survive. Yeah, without
Yeah, and that's what
assistance.
I mean. That's what I meant earlier. Masi, I
Mm,
appreciate the clarification.
mm,
Is financially and economically it won't survive. But in
Mm,
regards to people, they'll survive because you just that's one of the beauties of Tonga
mm.
is there's always gonna be Pele, there's always gonna be Hopa and Pata. Like the people aren't gonna
Mandioke
starve.
is everywhere.
Yes,
Everyone.
exactly. What we're kind of speaking is that the economy itself in regards
Yes.
to foreign goods and foreign assets coming in and being able to purchase those imported goods. As you can see here in 2022, Tonga's trade deficit was estimated to be 230 million.
Mm,
So
mm.
with exports, only
Only 14.
14 million. So
Yeah.
basically, 215 million bucks is how much money Tongans are sending to Tonga to balance out that budget or that
Yeah.
trade deficit. That's how critical, which goes back to what you're saying. This is that maybe that added pressure, right?
Mm,
Is
mm.
because really a lot of the financial or purchasing power is funded by Tongans overseas.
Yeah. 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 No,
So
and that's a good insight too. That's why government in Tonga needs to make things easier for people to create some innovation and to be more productive. I think that's another thing. Productivity in Tonga can really be improved if government would just stay away and listen to the
yeah,
king. For heaven's sakes, don't touch the private sector. Let the private sector
figure
kind
it
of run
out.
it and figure it out, and just maybe do a partnership instead of creating these laws and old laws to try to enforce them that is irrelevant to today.
No, and 100%. And I mean, once again, I don't want to beat the Starlink thing to death, but if you can't figure out internet connectivity, that's the one thing that could potentially have a huge difference. I mean, you could be a digital assistant right in Tonga
Mm,
getting paid.
mm.
And as we mentioned, there are certain people living in Tonga who are able to work remotely in Tonga getting paid foreign salaries because
Yes.
of the reliable internet that Starlink is able to provide.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely some interesting stuff here. Another comment. Dwayne said, hey, welcome to the digital Kava
Mm.
session. Maybe in general, especially these days, if it is a problem, the advent of the internet and the generalized degradation of our cultures play a part in that. Mental illness has skyrocketed. That's, I think, globally, right? That's a
Mm.
global problem. That's definitely happened. I guess, a good question to ask. And I don't know if anyone knows this, but the male versus female suicide rate amongst
Mm.
Polynesians, because I know in the West, males are suffering at a higher rate of suicide than females in general, and it's getting higher and higher. Um, so any thoughts on that, Masi?
Yeah. No, that's another thing I've noticed in Tonga too. A lot more, and that's probably what's driving a lot of the suicide. A lot more youth are having their own phones. You know, they're getting, probably into multiple um, information that's coming in a fast pace. All these trends, and we all know when you're a teenager, and then especially if you're a teenager in Tonga that hasn't probably gone overseas. You get caught up in certain things. You probably get a lot more experimental. Just all these kind of things. The same like every other youth that's going through in all the countries. Parents, just knowing Tongan parents, they don't know what their kid is really up to doing, but they have a phone, and you know what I mean. So
Yeah,
that's another thing, and probably that's the difference between what Cameron was sharing to what we grew up with. There was really no community. No, the only when we were in Tonga, we were still having the telephone in your house. That one phone, our
yeah.
neighbors would come to our house, do their calls there. But now everyone, even kids, are having cell phones. So I think that's another contribution to the decline
And
the
I could
decline of
be
people's ability to kind of navigate that.
man, yeah, I would love to get more information and more detail because I don't hear a ton of it in Tonga, but I do hear a lot of it more in the Polynesians overseas. And
Yes.
and I think I mean my gut is telling me all the things you mentioned earlier, Masi, that is uniquely Polynesian, right? All the pressures that are uniquely Polynesian on top of the Western world's problems of the internet
Tran-
and the expectation.
mm,
So it's almost like a double whammy, right? And
mm,
and and, and as we discussed, one of the lo- every culture has a positive and negative, the strength and weakness. One of the
mm,
weaknesses of our traditional culture is sometimes the communication up and that the communication top down sometimes is a challenge, but especially down up is definitely a big challenge. And so just think of it as all the uniquely cultural challenges. Then you add Western challenges on top of that, where it's
mm,
the Western education, which is heavily geared towards a certain type of way of thinking. A lot of our people
mm,
are hands-on learning, right?
mm.
And Western is way more, study and repetition of thought rather than hands-on work.
And another person that will probably be good that I have network with, and it's more this person is a very up to up to date with the current trends with youth mental health. He's a psychologist related to my wife's family. His name is Alo Foriaki. He even mentioned just some of the stuff that the Polynesian youth that kind of go through here in New Zealand, and what he also went through. He even mentioned it to me, like, man, you know what? It's so much better if I just stayed in Tonga and just be a high school teacher or a principal, and would have been happy just doing that. And I don't think a lot of people understand that when people make that move and they've already sacrificed a lot, that it is tough to try to make things work. And when you do make it work, it's good when you want the
Yes.
material things, but some people when you see the material things and they have it and they're like, is it really worth it to go all through all of that? And he just said, and he's a well-known psychologist, youth uh, uh, person that kind of understands what the youth Polynesian youth go through, and he even mentioned that. So
No,
yeah.
and this is my observation. I think our people need to have a little bit of a better understanding. This is something I usually speak with some of my project managers. Managing expectation is an important part of being successful and preparing your mind, right? Like usually I tell my project managers is like everybody wants to pay $1 but get $1 million product. And so you
Mm,
have to manage that expectation is, hey, you're paying us $1. You have to manage the customer and say, you're going to get $1. And if I can give you $1.02, okay, then great. But managing that expectation, this is what I'm trying to get to, Masi. When you make that huge jump from Tonga to to a foreign country, it is a generational investment. You are not going to see those major returns for, like, if you're lucky, within 2 generations,
mm,
right? But more, you're looking at 3 or 4 generations before you see the return, because you're coming in, you're in a foreign land, you don't know the landscape, you don't have a ton of relationships. Now it's changing a little bit in certain places because now that there's more critical mass of Tongans and Polynesians in certain areas, you can maybe speed up the progress. But in general, when you make that jump, it's a multi-generational investment where the first and second generation are just trying to stay afloat, and then
correct.
hopefully
Yeah.
the third or fourth generation, because they're more familiar with the landscape, that's now their home, they're
Mm,
familiar with, they can possibly make a change. But sometimes our brothers and sisters, they make this change and they, I don't know if it's just the observation on Hollywood and thinking like, oh, I'm just going to show up and then it's just going to happen.
mm,
That's just not a very realistic perspective. I don't know what your thoughts on that, Mussy.
mm. No, no, it's a huge jump, and it's a huge sacrifice, and it can be detrimental to many of the youth. Like, someone can go through a very poor mental health journey, and it could take away their life, and maybe not knowing, because like you said, speaking from the bottom up is not it's really kids don't really have a voice, especially if you are come from a two Tongan parent home, unless the unless you have understanding parents. So I'm just saying, in general, it's really hard to kind of get that communication. It's always more top to bottom, and even with the top to bottom, I
It's
mean,
not
most
very
most
successful in that communication either.
yes, yes, because most Polynesian parents, it's more you watch me do this, so I expect you to do this kind of thing instead of the verbal communication. No, do it this way, do it this way. But I'm just knowing.
Yeah,
I'm just doing with. I'm just thinking of my time with dad. Just most of dad's communication was more you watch him
doing.
kind of do it and do it this way, and then you follow, kind of thing.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean that's the thing. The verbal communication is not a it's not a thing amongst our culture to kind of thing, especially like a fam within the family. It's more do it this way, and like it's an expectation you follow it because I've been doing it this way,
yeah.
kind of thing.
No, and that's the typical like scolding you get, right? When you do something that you're not supposed to do. It's just, have you ever seen me do that? Why would you do that when you never seen me do that, right? Because
Yeah.
that is a, like you said, the primary mode of communication is by action and observation.
Mm,
Um, a couple comments here because I do appreciate everyone's comments here, and I do want to come back to it. Here's from Javier. I wish there's an organization that can teach people how to utilize Airbnb for the tourist season. Man, I think there's
internet.
so much that Tonga can do. So much that Tonga can
Mm,
do, but it's just there's two problems that I see. Number one, they think they have to give the stereotypical Hawaii experience, like the commercialized paradise. That's why I really like the true Polynesia or the true Tonga advertising that Tonga did. I was like,
mm,
that's the right way to think,
mm,
is leverage what's unique to Tonga. It doesn't have to be a 5-star hotel and white sands. You could build a really nice Tongan spot with just concrete floor, some good, just it just has to be clean and organized. It doesn't have to be Marriott type level, but then and then do an Airbnb kind of thing where you could have
mm,
you're selling a unique experience, but it takes some leadership with some creativity. And honestly, that's one of the biggest things I see lacking back home.
mm,
Leadership with vision.
mm.
I don't know. That's kind of my response to that. Mussy, any
I'll
thoughts
just
on that?
Yeah, I'll just add to that. And here's another reason why we can. And the thing is, too, I think we can give that white sandy beach, but even better than Hawaii in Hawaii. Hawaii has one of the pristine white beaches. The reason why it's hard to get there, Tonga government has a hard time just maintaining domestic flights that is reliable because many
Yeah.
people just fly into Tongatapu or just stay there. They don't really have the opportunity to really experience the outer islands because you either go by boat, which is not comfortable for tourists who only have a week or 2 weeks to stay, and two, the domestic airlines, they're not reliable. They're always off and on. And this is the funny thing with the Tonga government. I don't know this current administration. I don't know why they're trying to touch other things. If they can just maintain the bare minimum of just essential services, like keeping the domestic airline going, so that we can get tourists to experience the greater wide country of Tonga. And Hawaii is from there's an article that's considered that Hawaii is one of the top 10 beaches in the world.
Yeah.
That one
I think
person.
on like tourist.com, they rated
Yes,
Hawaii like the number
yes,
3 place to visit like a couple years ago.
yes. And if we had reliable services like that, more people will be able to experience that. And not only that, we'll have big companies, even like Marriott, if they know structures were reliable, I think they would put money because if you're a top three, top five in the world for a certain location, I'm sure they would make money if they had a reliable. The thing is, the government of Tonga have never been reliable with their structure, and that's part of the
No,
yeah.
my
So
issue, Mussy, is you know, Marriott will have to get a license first. They cannot build because we have to keep the law. We won't allow them to build unless they have a proper license.
Yeah, yeah. No, and that's yes, and that's the funny thing is like I don't know why government is, dude, just do the basic services and master that before you want to touch things like a Starlink or anything else because, dude,
Just don't get in the way.
the domestic airline under this current administration has been horrendous,
Well, and that's why
horrendous.
it's funny that you bring that up because this is what we're. I just saw the article on something online the other day, and they said that, and I don't know who this Chatham is. Is that like a New Zealand or
New
Australian?
Zealand, nope,
New
New
Zealand?
Zealand. There's a Chatham Islands close to New Zealand here that they fly back and forth.
Yeah. So apparently they're now stepping into Tonga because the Lulutai, look at here, hydraulics malfunction, no brakes, disabled flight recorder. Air
Yeah,
safety investigators described last flight of Lulutai A3 PUA hydraulics complications occurred mid flight before the Lulutai airline Saab 34OB lost control while taxiing after landing at Fuamotu with a full load of passengers in December of last year. I mean,
yeah,
it's a hazard. Like how are you going to get people to be coming in feeling comfortable to go to
yeah,
Hawaii and take advantage of those
yeah,
things like you're mentioning.
yeah.
Um, Here's another comment here. Was going to bring this up. They should teach the kids coding like they do in India. I would. I think that was like 10 years ago, Mo, with AI.
Mm. That's the
The
future.
AI is going to write the code. What we need is creativity and vision to, and obviously internet. We're gonna
Mm,
need, because AI is gonna write the code for you. As it's about good ideas and vision, and
mm,
asking AI. This is a, and when AI gets into what it's doing, it's gonna be who can be creative with their ideas, right? Because you're going to be able to tell AI, hey, I want you to write me the code to
correct.
run this app and run that, and AI is going to do all that work for you. So it's going to be a lot of creativity, and like you said right here, a lot of kids are smart in math, and teach them computer science, teaching them to be creative, how to use their skills in math and computer science, um, to be creative. And then to your last comment here, Mo, so they can work online from Tonga, but you need reliable internet.
Mm,
And that's something we are definitely far behind.
mm.
Let's see here.
Another thing I was thinking that Tonga, that especially the schools can do. I don't know if all schools, but I think all schools should be mandatory teach all kids to take like an agricultural class too.
Yeah,
I think because every family has some land that a lot of them sit vacant and bush, weeds and stuff. So I think every student should take an agricultural class. That should be a mandatory for private religious run institution like high schools and government schools. That should be. I know Toloa is one of the few schools that run it, but I'm talking
yeah.
about Tonga High. Everyone should be mandatory take an agricultural class.
No,
So
100%. And it becomes even more valuable when purchasing power goes up. Didn't I
yes,
hear somewhere that like one ufi was like 300 or 400 bucks or something ridiculous? And we're not talking
yes,
about the 6 foot ones. We're
no, no,
talking like the
just a
standard
regular.
normal ones.
Yeah,
Yeah. So coming
because
back to
they're
what you're saying,
yes. No, then the farmers are well off whoever can grow that. But if everyone can have that knowledge of at least growing, that's an option, because the
mhm,
more Tonga is able to export and people are wanting more Tongan products, especially Tongan watermelon, Tongan ufi, even Tongan manioke, it's people are willing to buy, and that would help the farmers and growers in Tonga. And you don't have to have a big farm. If you can have a good plot of land, you can still make a good living.
yeah, lot of interesting things. Lot of interesting things. Here's another comment. Being creative is the best defense mechanism against depression and anything that will lead them to be. Yes, and that's. I mean, there's Jordan Peterson and these guys just talk about, especially for like males, it's lack of purpose,
Mm,
right? Lack of purpose of, the Western world has basically deemed anything masculine as toxic, and so it kind of removes responsibility and I think purpose. And maybe that's some of the challenges that our youth have when they're making the transition into a new environment where, like you mentioned earlier, Masi, mom and dad are working two jobs just to kind of stay afloat, help with the financial responsibilities. But then the kids are stuck in the middle and have all the demands of
mm,
mom and dad's understanding of the traditional culture and how to communicate and how to behave, but then the environment they're in is totally
mm,
foreign to that way of thinking, and so they don't see where they fit into society and then lose purpose or get involved with the wrong group. I don't know,
mm.
that's just kind of my rambling thought there.
Mm, mm. No, and a big reason of the suicide. People are feeling, especially the Polynesian youth, suicidal. A lot of them just the kids feel like they're being neglected, but
Mhm.
parents are just trying to do their best to provide. But when you're a youth, you need some kind of attention to know that what you're being nurtured, you're being taught, because you're in a different environment, because you're seeing your friends being nurtured in a different way, kind of thing. So I mean, that also be a contribution to that.
Yes. Oh yeah, we ato e fuipu fonu ki a nacho business, eh.
Maria Nacho.
Yeah, just don't spill it. Eh? Oh, I mahua Nacho inuge osi eh. Atuya kakoe malo. There we go. Cheers, Nacho. That one was for you. Yeah, good comment here from Clyde Moore Tongas. The leadership needs to get up with the times. Our people are still in a limbo and haven't adjusted to these. I agree, and we need the proper leadership. I feel like our leadership is still thinking in the old school, like we just sit here and everything's just gonna happen. This reminds me of we were at like a family event or something, and the OGs, how you are, you go to a putu or something, and the olden days, like the OGs just sit down and give out the directions. They just sit there, do their thing, they drink their kava. When it's time to do something, they come out, they just give direction.
Mm,
And I think we spoke with Maka on
mm,
our guest when Maka joined us.
mm,
He was mentioning how, especially when he was in LA, the youth wanted to go sit down with the OGs and
mm,
and fight Kava and listen to them, but then the OGs would like chase them, right? Tell them, hey, Moalu, Moalu, go
mm,
away, you little kids. And then what happened is the little kids went and they go and became gangsters and stuff.
mm,
And then all of a sudden, the OGs were like, "Oh, it's better that the kids come and hang out with us,
mm.
even though they in
Then
the
let them
kava, then
go
let them
and
go and
do
become
whatever.
gangsters." So,
The street will eat you up alive and spit you
yeah,
back out,
yeah, and you'll be
and
lucky
you're
if
gonna
it
be the
spits
worst
you
thing.
back out.
Yeah,
Exactly.
either dead
So,
or you've been prison.
yeah, malo, malo, nacho. Cheers. Hey, what a bears. I don't know. Maybe it's good you didn't bring the toa if that's your expectation right there. See, yeah.
Xiii, que algo ficava ia. What a burst. Tala mai ka pu ke u fai mea pehe ma si e.
Hey, welcome here, Eva 9 or Eva Hiva. I don't know how you say
Mm.
that, but yes, very
Oh,
interesting. Very interesting, President Trump and the era we're in. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of the discussion there. Some interesting things that with the Polynesian youth. I think,
mm,
I don't know. I didn't realize it was that big of a challenge.
uh, it could be. I mean, it could be now in Tonga that phones and being accessible, and you don't get the best things that come out of social media telling you to do certain things, or think less of yourself if you're not doing something. So, you know, it could be a thing now, since different from when we were there.
Yes, just some comments here. Waterbed is on the wrong website. Marie. Yahweh is yep. Our Kalapus part in Oregon. Our mission is to bring our youth and guide them through the transition. As no, that's that is a really, I think it's an essential thing because, like we talked about earlier, it was a huge advantage when you didn't have so many ideas competing for the youth, that the communication was just one way, and it was a big advantage because we quickly align, right? We can move quickly when it's one directional communication, but when it comes to more voices than just your voice, then bringing the youth in closer and having dialogue goes a really long way. So that's really awesome that that's what you
Mm,
guys do over there in Oregon
Oregon.
at the Kalapu Spartan there.
Mm.
So any other thoughts on that, Mussy, on just kind of like the youth, and maybe not even just um suicide, but just challenges in general from your observation,
Mm.
maybe any ideas or kind of what you see, just any kind of thoughts in general there, Mussy.
Um, no, I mean, and of course, parents need to make sure that the communication has been. And here's the funny thing that's probably affecting also the family unit, Dua. So usually, when I used to be a social worker for a social provider here in New Zealand, remember when you there's a Tongan family that moved here to New Zealand from Tonga. I think it was a lottery pick or whatever. They usually do those things in Tonga. You get the lottery, and if you get picked, you get like residency to go to New Zealand. This family came. They applied for social housing. That's pretty popular in New Zealand. And when you get this social housing, you get prioritized depending on, if you're a single mom with how many kids and
Mm.
stuff. But there's been many times families come, they're married, and remember, when you're married, you're not a high priority to get social housing or and to get as much income.
Once again,
So
yeah.
so you get it's sad, but you get two parents that will apply for these housing. Then you get the mom who's saying she's single, even though they were married in Tonga. They come, she gets the nice big house, and they get a good inflow of government benefits and assistance come to them. And then when they usually do these checks, you one time I came to a one time I came, they thought I was a government housing check. The husband ran from the house to the car to go and hide because they thought I was the government checks. But when you see certain types of behaviors like that, and then you see the kids doing that, what do you think the 8 kids are gonna see that you can this is a good behavior to do in order to get stuff from the government, and then it becomes a generational thing. Then if you see parents like that living that way, then what do you think
What are
the
you
social
reinforcing?
issues? Yes, then you allow all these social issues happening to these 8 kids to think it's okay, and then it's
That's the
okay to see
norm.
mom and dad to live this kind of life. When somebody comes, dad has to run and hide and pretend that the mom is single, kind of stuff.
See,
So
and
those are
yeah.
certain things that is probably the underlying and probably big factors to a lot of the social issues that's happening when these families come from Tonga, and they figure out, oh, do these I get more when the government says that I don't have a husband or whatever. But it's a negative thinking, and it's a negative impact on the kids' minds grow when they grow up.
No, 100%. And that, we talked about the generational investment to really progress and achieve some of the long-term goals. When you get into the situation you're talking about, that's a cycle that
Mm,
if you do it right, maybe in 2 generations, but if you do it the way you're describing, you're never going to get out of that cycle at that
yeah,
point, right?
yeah,
Because this is why the government is not don't rely on the government to come and save you, because they're incentivized to keep you dependent on the government, so you vote for them, and
correct. You have more
that's
influence on you.
yeah.
You're like a puppet, whatever they want you. The greatest enemy to the government is a person that is independent that can't be moved.
Yep. And that's a big challenge, and it's
Mm.
we definitely have to. It's hard, and it's like they
Dua,
say, easier said than done, but it's
yes,
hard.
and no, and that's the thing. This this social housing is a big thing in New Zealand, and it's good to have it unlimited, but don't be 20 years living on social housing. That's not healthy. That's not healthy. That's not what government is for. But to get help when you need it is fine. But try your best to try to get away from it. But
Yeah.
yeah, because to me, if you're coming from Tonga to be like that, it's like, man, to me, I think Tonga is better because you're not being told what to do and how to live. It's just purely just the want, or they want to have more material things and all these, but material things in the expense of your freedom. I don't know if that's worth it, but some people think it is.
No, 100%. And that's I hope we don't get stuck in that cycle as a people, because we see other groups get stuck in that cycle, and multi-generational, right?
Mm,
Where it's, grandparents, parents, grandchildren, and even sometimes great grandchildren all in the same project area, right?
yeah.
And it's tough. It's really tough. Really hard to break out of that. Shoot, let's see. I think we kind of ran that
Mm.
topic down. Anything else, Mussy, on that?
Good, good with that.
Let's go back to some of the comments here, just in case that leads to um hey, welcome, Surfer T. I always tell the homies there's your drinking buddies, smoking buddies, but nothing lasts as long as your Faikava Kalapu click. That has a lot, and that's one of the
Mm,
things that I'm kind of sitting there and I'm observing this phenomenon, you want to call it, with the youth, right? And the Kava that's coming up. I'm hopeful that it'll overall have a positive, like you're saying, Surfer T. I think it will. Um, because as long as you have a consistent group, it's really healthy for the mental health, right? To have a consistent group that you meet with and hang out with. And hopefully these Kalapu groups don't be the type of Kalapu groups that cause trouble, but are a good group to just kind of come, hang out, share similar stories, build some relationships, and then go back home to the
mm,
family. But
mm,
very, very interesting point there. Um, yeah, 100% looking like Javier here saying, true Surfer T is right. The Kalapu Brotherhood. I think there's a lot of positives. Looks like Surfer T is a libertarian. Marie, Peter Thiel, and I think Elon Musk is probably like a libertarian overall.
mm.
Um, yeah, that's what we were mentioning earlier, Clyde Moore. Times have changed. It's hard to maintain the normal life offshore, let alone, and that's the thing. It's you know that's an interesting thing to kind of discuss here, right? Because
Mm.
I don't know. I've heard this. I think it was Nina who brought this up, that like some of the Palangi wards are like, oh, they want the Polynesian wards to integrate with the Palangi wards because they see all the Tongan in especially the Tongan wards, right? I mean, let's just be straightforward. I mean, the majority of the stakes are Tongan, but they see the Polynesian wards and stuff doing all the activities and stuff, and they say they want to have that more in their wards.
Mm.
And kind of going along with Clyde Moore's topic here, it's kind of like this fine balance, because if we're here in this Western world, it has its demands, and if we just totally disregard some of the challenges or commitments of our culture, it sometimes is to alleviate some of that stress. But at the same time, if you don't hold on and engage in the culture, you can lose some of the great benefits of the culture. So it's kind of I don't
Mm.
know whether you want to call it a catch 22 or a balancing act. I don't
Mm.
know, that can be a challenge. And I think that's where the challenge is being wise, right? And being wise and knowing when to engage and when
Yeah.
to engage. What are the most important things? I don't know.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that, Mussy?
No, I think the culture has a lot more benefits. To be honest, there's a lot of benefits to it than some of the negative sides. Because the way, like you said, to navigate that in order, so you can do a degree of, you can always do your cultural obligations. It's to the point of what's enough, right? If you want to do it to a place that's gonna really financially hurt you in a way that you can't pay your your mortgage or your rent, or or you have other duties that you need to do something else like school fees, don't do that. Just do enough that you showed that you did contribute. You're doing your best until you're 5 years later on, or like when your kids are in a position to help you out and they're working and stuff, to kind of do what you want to do to make it. Like I'm talking about, if somebody you want to give $100, that's what you want to do today. But if you only can give $60, that should be enough. Or
Mm,
to do get a ticket to go somewhere else. If you can't get a ticket to take you and some other people, just get a ticket to take your son to send to represent your family. You know what I mean? It's all about managing, and that what's hard is because Polynesians want to give their best, right?
yeah.
And then when they give their best, it can really hurt you later on, because now you understand I can't do everything, and you actually probably won't be able to fulfill your family duties within your own family because you're doing your best for everything. And we're all humans, we're not robots. Maybe we can do it in a certain time of your age, but you get older every year. It's just all about managing. But I think there's a lot more cultural duties that really helps you, because one, your cultural duties helps you remember who you are and where you came from and what your
Hmm.
families have kind of sacrificed to get you at. And if you don't do any cultural duties, for me, this is just me personally, then you become lost in trying to figure out the Western way of how to navigate. And sometimes that's a lot involves a lot of stuff that can really put you in a rabbit hole. But
No,
yeah, that's just my
and
thought.
that's no, I and that's an interesting thing because when you listen to Jordan Peterson, he says, you know what's worse than having too much responsibility? Having zero,
Mm,
right? And so I think that's what you're kind of alluding to, Mussy, is if you totally disengage from the cultural responsibility, it is worse than almost engaging in too much. But you know what's better is engaging in a wise way, right? Where you say,
yeah.
"Whakapoto poto." I think Javier or someone here mentioned, you know, the fua e fatongia, but do it in a wise way.
Yeah.
Don't just say, "Oh, absolutely no," but engage the way you can.
Mm,
Um, Clive Moore, enough for a palang is not enough for a Tongan, and that's
mm,
the pressure. That's the pressure from the cultural side, especially when the leadership within the family they think that what you're giving is not enough.
mm,
Hey, that's where communication back and forth. We can try and leverage the best of both worlds,
mm,
where we engage on our cultural responsibilities on the top down communication, but also encourage some bottom up communication to just kind of say, hey, do you want some help or no help? But this is what I can bring to the table. I don't know.
mm.
That's
No,
the
Tua.
two
I
cents
was
there.
gonna I was gonna mention. Did you watch that Tongan true based on a true story that Red, White, and Brass? Did you watch that Tongan
No,
movie?
no, I haven't been able to see it. The one
If you
with
do have a chance,
yeah.
yes, true story. It was a good example of the father always setting it, and then what helped to make the 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 kids to listen from the children up was the wife played a big role. Says, hey, we need to listen what the kids want, and was able to help the kids to kind of fulfill their dream. And it's a true story. So for those who haven't watched Red, White, and Brass, it's an awesome Tongan patriotic movie. It's a good movie to
Yeah.
watch with your families and stuff. So it was a good illustration of that family navigating, because he was a Faifekau. He always told the kids, no, don't do this, be conservative when you play your music at the halftime at the World Cup, and do this, do that. And then he was feeling pressure from the president of the church. But when it came to the end, the wife said, kids been following to do what everything you said. Let's just, for this one chance, let the kids do what they want. And they were able to really really did a good job in their performance at the halftime. But yeah, it's a good story too. I mean, that movie really depicts of what every Tongan family do when they're living overseas to navigate this unique culture of the Western and the Tongan culture. So
Okay. Let me see if I can copy this. I might have to pull it up on Facebook, but it looks like Javier suggested a video. I'm going to have to pull it up. Looks like Javier is on Facebook. So I'm going to go to our Facebook page here real quick and put it up. But while I'm doing that, I wanted to express an idea and I wanted to see what the group's thought here was.
Mm.
Um, hey, Javier, is that comment straight on the Polynesian Eyes link on Facebook page, or is that my personal one, just so I can try and find it, or on Tevita H. Fale's a broadcast there? But the idea was this, Masi. I was thinking about this the other day.
Mm.
This is why it's really important for us to have these conversations about our history, and how, especially, there's a very interesting dynamic between, oh, Tevita H. Fale's one. Okay, I'll look it up on his page so I can copy and paste that comment.
Mm.
The Okay, opening new tab. Okay, I got it. Oh, is this the Fahu? Okay, let me pause that. Um, this is why it's important to have that conversation, or really, as we talk about how, and when we say Tonga, yes, we're speaking specifically of Tonga, but in many ways, Tonga is the accumulation of the Polynesian Empire's knowledge, bank, and
Mm.
experience of the empire. So when I say Tonga, I'm also kind of indirectly referring to all of Polynesia, on how Tonga was able to navigate colonization. And it's the same thing that we're talking about, the social navigating of the Western world and our Tongan culture and history, is to observe how Tupou the First, Laufiri Tonga, people like
Mm.
Shirley Baker, and
Mm.
how our ancestors were able to navigate that transition. Because in many ways, we're talking about the same thing, but in our families and in our
Yes.
communities, right?
Smaller scale. Yes.
Yes. And so this is the value of kind of understanding where we come from,
Mm.
and our family history and our political and social history, because you have the traditional power setting, the Tuitonga with Laufiri Tonga. Then you also have the future leadership and this new way of approaching leadership with Tupou the First, who is still, in a way, he's a distant cousin of Laufiri Tonga, right?
Mm.
He's not the heir to the traditional power in Tongan political and religious um, perspective, but he has a relationship to it. And then you also have technology, religion that are foreign, right?
Mm.
And you have social things that are coming in, and so you're trying to navigate colonization, which is, and for all intents and purposes, we'll just call it Western culture. And it is foolish to just say we're going to ignore,
Mm.
right? If our ancestors just said, we're not going to pay attention to Captain Cook and the English and all those people, well, that's one of the quickest ways to get colonized, right?
Correct.
And
Yeah.
or to fully reject it. Our ancestors looked at the problem and they were realistic. They said, we're not going to beat them militarily wise. We cannot just ignore them. We have to look at the problem and be honest with the challenge in front of us.
Yeah.
It's coming, right?
Yeah.
Western influence is coming. How do we leverage that to preserve our culture, our political, all those things
Our way of
that
life.
we
The
have, our
Tongan.
way
Yes.
of life?
Our
Exactly.
Polynesian way of life. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's literally what Tupou the First and Laufiri Tonga did. They
Mm.
guided us. And here's the interesting thing. Like we've mentioned, one of the discoveries of what we're discussing here is Laufiri Tonga realized that the Tui Tonga was outdated. It was no longer the future. And this is the reason why. This is the idea that I was thinking of the other day.
Mm-hmm.
The Tui Tonga was in many ways viewed as a priest slash representative or intermediary between the people of Tonga and God, Hikuleo, right? And so that was the role of the Tui Tonga for thousands of years.
Mm.
But now Laufilitonga has become a Christian. He's a Catholic now. He goes, that's not my job. That's Jesus's job, right? The new
Mm.
religion that's come in, which in many ways is just the restoration of the old religion. So I'm wondering if Laufilitonga was like, my role, the traditional role of the Tuitonga is outdated, right? And
Mm.
and we need to adjust to keep our people free. Then he looks to the side and he sees Tupo the First, who shows some significant talent, not just in war, but in navigating the Western kind of like scenery, the
Yes.
government and so forth. And Laufilitonga goes, it's time for me to end this Tuitonga line helped our people for thousands of years, but it's time that we embrace. I've embraced Christianity. Tupo the First has embraced Christianity. There's this new technology, this new culture that's coming. In order to survive, we have to adapt, apply what we can apply while preserving all the good that we've done and kept us as a people. I don't know.
Mm.
That's just some thoughts there. And then we'll jump into Javier's video here. But any thoughts on that, Masi?
No, no, I agree. To I think out of all the leaders of that time, Taufa Hao, Tupola first, he was very familiarized because I think he was also working with the Shirley Bakers, with
Mm-hmm.
a lot of guys who were foreigners. So he kind of understood how the foreigners worked, right? And this was going to be part because even it is part of how we live now. He kind of saw that this was going to be part of the new way of how the world was going to be structured, because if it came to Tonga and the little islands, it was already in the other worlds. And he was able to navigate that because essentially he wanted to keep the Tongan way of life. And what is that Tongan way of life? In Tonga we still have our land, and Tonga can still be Tonga, like they always say, "Kay Tonga pea Tonga." It's because of Tupo the first, and also Laufili Tonga allowing it to happen. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and just for some of the viewers who haven't listened, we've mentioned this on other episodes, but it is kind of our thought that Laufili Tonga, he understood how vulnerable Tupo the First was, right? Because all Laufili Tonga had to do was cause problems. He didn't even have to defeat or win anything. He just has to challenge Tupo the First, and England has an excuse to colonize Tonga, right?
Yeah,
To be like, hey, these savages,
we would have
they're
been
killing each
fractured. Yeah.
other. Exactly. Let's just bring them civilization. He understood that, so that's why he not only did not engage with Tupo the First to try to put pressure, but he actually solidified Tupo the First position, and that is expressed through the Taumafa Kava that he sets up. Nobody
Yes.
told Laufili Tonga to do that. He goes out of his way to do two things. Tell Tupo the First, I'm not going to continue this line. I'm going to self-end it. And number two, here's a Taumafa Kava for you and the future of
Yeah.
our people,
Yeah.
because he realized Tupo the First was going to carry it forward.
Yes. No, and just to add on to that, it was also to legitimize his authority to the Tongan people, that he was the legit modern king of the new Tonga that was gonna
Mm,
be sprung up. Because I think we all know that Tuikan Pol, they were only Ilo Kava and stuff. He Tupo the first had to be taught, or his advisors had to be taught of how to structure the Tauma Whakava with the help of Laufiri Tonga. And because that was
yeah.
an illustration to all of Tonga, this guy is the legit leader of Tonga moving forward.
And like the comment that you made, Masi, on a couple episodes before, where we see the switch that Tupo the First does. Remember
Mm.
that, like the Tuikanu Kupolu was a voting system, right? And
Yes.
that's one of the things I know our Samoan brothers and sisters are always on us saying that we're disrespectful on the podcast because of this.
Mm.
We will give credit where credit is due. The Tuikanu Kupolu system for the youngest kingly line, it adopted a lot of the Samoan structure, and that kingly line was a voting system
Yes.
where they voted in who the next Tuikanu Kupolu would be. That was the opportunity for Tupo the First to
To get
get
it.
the power, to have the influence, but then he makes a switch for his descendants, right? He no longer says, hey, I know that Tuikanukupolo traditionally is a voting system. And
Mm.
I'm wondering if the Taumafa Kava is what solidified that. It was
Mm.
saying, hey, look, I have now have a Taumafa Kava. It's different. It's not the same as the old Tuikanukupolo.
Yeah.
So it justified, maybe, I don't know, it's just an idea that
Mm.
popped up, is maybe with Laufidi Tonga giving him a Taumafa Kava, kind of solidifying him as this is the kingly line that will lead us into the future, that empowered Tupo the first to say, hey, yeah, we're no longer gonna vote on the
Yeah.
Tuikanukupolo moving forward. It's gonna follow the Tuitonga and the Tuihatakalaua
Hmm.
process moving forward of father to son, father to son.
Correct.
And we
Correct.
think
No, that
we thank Samoa for that idea.
yes, because Samoa, that is still the way it's done now with their titles. Every title,
Yeah.
every family has a has a voice on who they want, and when you're in the, and that's I think that's what Taufahao Tupo the first did. He went around and gathered support, whether that be, hey, I'll support you in this if you vote for me to be the Tuigang Polo, and that things can be a little very, the democratic process can be very, very messy and
Yeah.
longevity, but it's still good for that time. It was good for that because that's how Dupola first came. And even now, like I said, the Maria Toa title has been vacant since the death, and we're talking about, I don't know, it's been 20 years
And is
or
that
something.
because
So
just not enough people to vote for a title, or what's going on?
it's either split and they haven't, a majority hasn't hasn't come to the conclusion to pick somebody, so it just stays stagnant.
Mm.
So no one gets picked. But yeah, that is interesting that how that happened, and he was voted in, and that's, it's just funny. It's almost like a divine intervention too. Like, it's just crazy how certain things
It
had to happen.
is. And it's not enough to have a good idea. It's having a good idea and knowing when to exercise it at the right time, right?
Correct.
Because Tupo the first comes across it, he uses it at the right time, right, to get into
Mm.
power, but then doesn't use that idea moving forward. It served its purpose, and then now he goes, yeah, we're gonna go back to the Tuihatakalaua and the Tuitonga system of father to
Father
son,
to
father
son.
to son, father to son.
Mm.
But yeah, okay, interesting. That was a interesting
Mm.
discussion there. So thank you, Masi. So
Wow.
Javier here sent this, and it looks like it's Pilo Levu, and she's gonna have a conversation on the Fahu situation. And no, obviously she's the Fahu to her family, right, and her kids,
Yeah.
because she's the sister of the current king, and yeah,
Older sister of the current king. Yeah.
yeah.
Everybody has a file. There is one thing I'm going to tell you about this that I've discovered in the United States, which I don't think is such a good idea. Now, we can take this fahu business too much, and we go to great expense, and we show off a bit too much, and it's unnecessary. You're basically only meant to have one fahu. Say if your father has 10 sisters, right? You don't have to provide 10 different tiers, cakes, colors, all that. Just the eldest sister will do, okay? Or the eldest sister's child will do. We don't have to provide 10 of everything if your fathers have 10 sisters. I know that when we come to the States, everything is new to us and we want to do the best we can. Very often when you do the best you can, you do too much. And then you get into debt. Your parents get into debt because of this. And that's not good. And when you see your parents suffer and get into debt, then you don't respect our customs anymore. And that's wrong. We should only do what we can. If we have a big wedding, it's okay if we only have 200 people. We don't have to have 500 people at every family wedding we have, do we? So you go tell your parents that I told you. And if they want to know more about our culture, they can come and ask me.
Very good point. Any thoughts on that, Masi? Malo, Javier?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree, and that is starting to be a talking point amongst the youth. I'm starting to pick up. They always think the cultural thing is unnecessary, doing your fatongia and stuff. But I don't think she brings up a good point. They've always just witnessed the negative side, and that's they haven't been around other Tongan families who kind of when you have the capacity, I don't mind you going all out. But if you don't, and it's a show off, unfortunately, only the internal people will really know what's going on. But don't just do whatever you get. And this is the thing, and this is what I talk about with a lot of the youth too. When your families make sacrifice to come overseas and they see their kids not making the right choices, a lot of them will think they probably didn't make the right move, because the whole point is, if your father came to overseas to kind of sacrifice, give a better life, your job is to also help the father or the family that's made that sacrifice, to help them with their fatonia. And that's the part but the thing is, you got to progress. If you're just coming
Mhm.
and then you're doing the same thing, doing the same thing, there's really no progress to doing, really kind of increase the standard of living of your family. You always kind of think, what was the sacrifice for? But at the same time, it's like I said, when you do that migration, it's a lot of work, and I don't think people understand that it takes a lot of sacrifices to make that happen. But no, Pio Level is Princess Pio Level is right for the youth. The youth haven't seen things done properly, and that's unfortunate. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
and
negative thing.
here's she makes a comment, and I'm going to share a video here. Have you seen the video about Mike Tyson about being a great man versus a good man? It's interesting
No.
because that's what I think Pilo Levo is saying in that video that Javier shared, right? We all want to do our best, but sometimes we just need to do good. Eh? Because good, we all have a general understanding of what's good, eh? Or good enough, feunga, right? But when we say best, well, what's the best? Who's the
Mhm.
best? Best ends up being, oh, well, they did this last time, so we have to do more and more. And best does not have a limit, right? It's a hyper competitive type of mentality. But being good is pretty simple. It's direct. What's good? Oh, a cake is good.
Mm.
We don't have to be the best. We don't have to have 50 cakes like Clyde Moore here say, you know.
Yeah.
But Mike Tyson has this. Let me see. Hopefully, it doesn't have any language, and we try to minimize the language as much as we can to the viewers and keep it PG-13. Um, but Mike Tyson here gives a good comment about how he always wanted to be great for a while, but now he doesn't want to be great anymore. He just wants to be good, and I think this is the video. But let's listen to it.
Junior said, I met a lot of great men, and all those great men I met, they were no good men. And he said, after meeting all these great men, I decided I want to be a good man. And that's what I said. I said, I want to be a good man. People told me I was great for a long time. As I got older, it didn't mean anything to me. And then I realized that being a good man worth more than being a great man.
Wow.
All great men are not good men. But most good men could become great men.
Yeah, it's true.
John Kennedy.
Very interesting. Eh?
Mm. Mm.
When you're a great man, you don't find a good man. Eh? They're not good men when they're great men, but good men can become great.
Mm.
And I think that's what she's kind of below level, and what we can learn maybe with how we apply our culture is the whole point of our culture is to do something good. Eh? But then when we get carried away with, and you see this sometimes in the fundraising for the high schools, right? Somebody drops 1,000. The next guy who only showed up with 1,000, he has to drive to the ATM because now he's going to give 2,000, right?
Mm.
Because
Mm.
why? He wants to be best, the best, the best, and the best has no limit. There's
Mm.
excess. But the
Mm.
whole point of our culture is to do good. Do
Mm.
good to your family, do good to your neighbor. I don't know, just the 2 cents on that.
No, no, good point. And Mike Tyson, he's a very unique story because he skipped the good to go great because man, what he was one of the youngest champions ever, right?
Yeah,
To be
youngest heavyweight
undisputed.
champion.
Yeah, so he he's kind of like a Michael Jackson in a sense that he skipped a lot of steps. He was always great, 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 and I think he kind of skipped how to be good because when you're good, you can always become great. But he just went straight to great, and then now he's kind of understanding with his that he's done with his famous life journey in boxing, understanding that being good is has more worth than being great. Eh?
Yeah, and I mean, we'll come back to Laufidi Tonga. We'll come back to Tupo the first. They were not trying to be quote unquote great. And I was
Yeah,
just listening. Shoot, I was just listening to, and I don't think I have it on TikTok.
and Tua, and that's another thing
You had a
that
comment. Yeah, go ahead, Masi.
no, another thing I was thinking of that even when you and there's always going to be he or she says, when you give what you can, it's just
Hmm.
being able to navigate and don't be so influenced when what people are saying about you. Just stick to your guns, do your best, and you should be comfortable. And just gotta you and your family gotta be the same because sometimes it can be an issue, especially if the let's just say if the dad says we can only do this, but the mom wants to do something great and do all of this, do all of that, then there can be a little back and forth, and then the father
Some
gives in.
tension. Yeah,
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. Yeah, at the same time, you gotta do your best until you and your family are able to contribute more, and then you can do more. But don't be influenced what people say about you, what you contribute, and what you do, because you can say to yourself, "This is the best I can do for now," and then you can always improve and do better. But
yeah. Looks like there may be some drama on TikTok here that Nacho, you seem to know all the drama that's going on now. It says, I seen drama on TikTok because a mom wanted to assign sisters to Fahu each brother's kids. Now the sisters fighting over Fahu. See, this is the kind of stuff where we're just not doing good, right? We want to do best. And when we're trying to do best, sometimes it kind of gets, but it comes from a good place, right? We want to give the best. But
yeah,
at the same time, we just need to know feunga pe mo ivyo mao and what's
yeah,
whakapoto. Excess is not whakapoto. Excess is not wise. Good. That's why there's a lot of wisdom in good enough. Don't
yeah.
overshoot the mark. Just hit the mark itself.
And that's the thing, Tua, when you get like certain leadership, like a ulmo tua or like a fajo, and they let's
Mm,
just say they start telling, hey, shit, she meana o mai or what, you know what I mean? That's tough. I mean,
yeah.
I always say, yeah, it's easy said and done, but that's some of that social pressure that people have to give a lot more. If what I'm saying, your ulmotua in your family and the fajo in your family is doesn't see your eye that you're doing your best and this is it, and then you get comments like that, then the other families kind of follow saying things like that. So easy said than done, but I'm just saying it's one of those things. It's very difficult to navigate, but one of those things you just have to say this is the best I can do and just live with it. And then you work hard and be able to save more. You can do contribute more, but don't more too much to get to a point that you can't even take care of your own children and wife. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's the
No,
reality because
that's the
those are the two.
reality.
Those are the leadership usually in your family is the ulmotua and the fahu from the male
Yeah.
and female side.
No, 100%. And kind of like this mentioned, we have to guard the kids. When when you're when you're ever in the situation, because we all have our unique opportunities where we're the leadership, whether it's now or in the future. That's the opportunity to set the precedent, right? And be very mindful when you're in the leadership position that you don't set the precedence for something like you said, Masi, right? Where
Mm,
you're just kind of pushing it maybe a little bit too much rather than just saying, hey, bring what you have and we'll make it work, right?
mm, mm,
Um,
mm.
I don't know. It's a lot, like you said, a lot easier said than done. Um, let's see here. You know, anything less than the best is a felony. Malo, Vanilla Ice. Yeah, that's why Vanilla Ice was a one-hit wonder. Too much best.
Mari. Tangat ka. Uy, fay law mo niya. Wait a bird.
What a bears, yes,
Mari.
on top of it.
Mari. Mari.
Ay. Interesting. No, but like Javier said to Nacho, send them the pilo level. Maybe it's a good time for some, when you're in a company, things are kind of going crazy, then the CEO says, oh yeah, we need some training. We need to do some training. So Nacho, go put
Pause.
the pilo
Pause.
level video on TikTok.
Everyone drop everything. Some training, upskilling, and some tutorials that we just go
Mm.
through.
Back,
Workshops.
yeah, some workshops to get back to the basics. Tackling and blocking. Don't worry about the Hail Mary. Just
Yeah.
tackle and block. That's all we need. Malo, God love you. I seen how Fajo works. I reckon if every culture does it, the world would be a more better and respectful place. Just say, no, true. When it's done correctly, right? When it's done correctly, when it gets overdone, can be a challenge. But I agree. I think it allows everyone an opportunity to have someone to elevate and respect and to subject yourself to in a way in the social, and it also gives everyone who has from their mother's side to be put in a position of being recognized. So it's a
Yeah.
really interesting balancing feature in the Tongan social structure. So when it's done right, I agree, it's a beautiful thing.
No, and just to add to that, that's why that system is kind of pretty good. It usually works pretty well because usually the ulmotua and the fahu, if there's some family who can't really don't like what the ulmotua is kind of doing, they can kind of share with the fahu, and the fahu can kind of try to help to tailor it to work a different way. And then it can be even opposite. Sometimes the fahu is not doing anything. The ulmotua can also just suggest some things because that's the right
Advise.
kind of that's the
Yeah.
that's the right of telling your information to say, hey, the fahu has been a little bit too much or a little bit too thing with certain things, and usually the ulmotua because they kind of in a working companionship too. It kind of brings that balance because they usually those two figures are the ones who are kind of the critical social structure of a Tongan function or a Tongan family way of accomplishing a task. So, yeah, I mean, it's really good when they work in harmony. You see the best of what a Tongan kainga and family can do.
No, 100%. Oh yeah, we. Tapu au pitoia. Eh? Ang hafu ipu fonu. I'm gonna give the whole Kava bowl to Water Bears. We're not even gonna scoop it up. Ang epe fukumete kakato kakava kia Water Bears. Eh?
Mari,
What
Mari.
a wise man. Vanilla ice to hao siya namo ne fangi fu I dea poto. Ha homo lau kau tama. To everybody, should we just give Water Bears the whole kumete? Eh? Look at that. Mari.
It causes stress. Mari, Mari.
Not only is Water Bears wise, but he rhymes. Maria. So we do have a question here. So it says, question for Tuan Masi, what are mom's thought about the Fahu system? I don't understand the question that exactly here, Nacho. Are you asking what are the mother's thoughts? Maybe just kind of clarify that question if you're able to, Nacho. I know you send there does, but it still is not clear to me. So maybe if you could rephrase that a little bit. But yeah, that's definitely a unique feature. Is the Fahu system only found in Tonga? Do you know the answer to that, Masi?
Pretty much, pretty much. I mean, I haven't really lived in the other Polynesian states, but Samoa doesn't really have anything. They do allow females to hold certain titles too,
Mm.
um, but not certain villages. It's only a male thing that holds titles, but there's some villages will allow females to hold maybe lesser titles, but they're still chief titles. So but nothing like Tonga with the Fahu system. I think that's only a thing within Tonga. Maybe they did do it back in the days, but with the whole colonization, things were lost.
Yeah.
But Tonga was able to maintain that because of the structure. Tonga really valued that, and that was really saved. So, yeah.
Mm, very interesting. Very, very
Mm,
interesting. Okay. All right. Well, I think to close out today, Mussy, we are a little bit behind on some responses on social media.
okay.
And we did have some like responses that were videos.
Mm,
Um
that will go through that you wanted to go through.
yeah, we'll respond to some of the
Okay.
TikTok responses to some videos. Um, so let's start with this one. We'll share this tab and we'll go here. Start with this one. And it started with us a response to some of our videos.
Aloha TikTok. Aloha mai kākou. So
Hey.
this comment says, I
Mm.
appreciate the thoughts and your naming of the direction.
Oh, let me pause. Wrong one. Maybe it's this one.
In
There we
Samoa,
go.
there's really no structure.
Aloha TikTok. Aloha mai kākou. So every time I see these guys on my FYP, I think to myself, man, these guys just don't get it. But it's okay. It's okay. Their argument is that they're saying that there is no physical structure or tangible evidence that highly suggests that there was a Tuimanua Empire. Now, in this video, let me give them some tangible evidence. Now, I'm going to use our languages, all of our Polynesian languages. The way Polynesians determine north and south, east and west. Now, let me focus on north and south because east and west is pretty easy. You can see that where the sun set and sunrise. But north and south is pretty important. In Hawaii, they determine north and south through the direction of the winds. The Ko'olau winds to the north and the Kona winds to the south. Ko'olau translates to Ko'elau. Ko'elau translates to Tokelau. Kona translate directly to Tonga. Ko'olau to the north, Kona to the south. Same goes for Tahiti, same goes for Uvea and Futuna, same goes for Niue and Rarotonga, and Tokelau too. Same goes for the Cook Islands, same goes for Aotearoa. Now, Aotearoa in Hawaii is the most remarkable one to me because there is no physical marker of Tonga to the south of Aotearoa, but they still use the word south. Tonga. Tonga is still the word south in the Maori language. Now, in Hawaii, there is no physical marker of Ko'olau, but they still use the word Ko'olau, which means Tokelau. Now, in the Samoan language, Tokelau is north of Samoa, Tonga is south of Samoa. When you go to Tonga, Tokelau is the word north, and then Saute is a borrowed word for the word south, the English word south. So, but I guarantee you, before the white man came and changed the word south, the previous word was Tonga. Now, what does this all mean? So, to me, that highly suggests that everybody derived from the one place that has the physical marker. The only place that has the physical marker is Samoa. Samoa has a physical marker of Tokelau to the north, which is the islands of Tokelau, and Tonga to the south, which is the islands of Tonga. So to me, that highly suggests that everybody came from Samoa during the time of the Tuimanua Empire, because the objective of the Tuimanua Empire was to find these trade routes, expand, establish the trade routes, control the trade routes. But Tuitonga's empire, his objective was to be the dictator, the sole ruler of all this area. And it was easy for Tuitonga because those routes were already established during the time of the Tuimanua Empire. Now, I'd like to apologize ahead of time to all the Polynesian islands if I piss you off in this
Hey.
video, but this is just my opinion, this is my theory, and I just use facts, tangible facts to support my opinion and to support my theory. But feel free to poke holes in my argument. Feel free to poke holes and you know what I mean, and tell me I'm wrong. I'm all ears.
Thoughts, Masi? Any thoughts?
Um, so he's pretty much basing it on the navigation, north and south. Is that pretty much
Yes.
what I'm getting it?
Yes.
We need to have an episode with David Tafale. He did mention in some previous episode that he Tonga means south means was north, right? With the Tongan compass, and then south being north with the way the Polynesians navigate the islands.
Yes.
Um, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's kind of a weak point because if it was like we said, if there was an empire, there would have been some ruins in Manua, which is no ruins. Um, I don't know if that navigation has anything to do of where the empire started. Um, I mean, and I appreciate his feedback because this is all the discussion. I don't know if that's strong evidence what we provided. Well, I've also provided that the Tui Tonga title holders predate the Tui Manua, so it's hard for the Tui Manua to be an empire if they didn't even predate the Tui Tonga, which is older. Um, Manua didn't even suggest that there were even ruins to kind of signify that it was the headquarters of all of Polynesia.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's really nothing there. Um, but if some people base it on the navigation of To'elau and Tonga being the reason why and where it's located, they can make their decision on that. I think it's not as strong because I don't know how that's supposed to signify that it was the empire or that's where it originated from, because it's a pretty similar language for everybody in all the Pacific. So I don't know. That's just kind of my initial thoughts on that. But yeah.
Yes. Very, very interesting. Just a couple things to think of here real quick. So like you're saying, his position is Tokelau is north of Samoa and Tonga is south.
Hmm.
Okay. First off, when you're traveling large distances, right? Being very detailed on your coordinates and your directions is really critical, right? So is Tonga directly south? You're gonna miss Tonga. Assuming and
Mm,
then we're taking his position,
mm.
right? And if everything is, like you're saying, is south and Tokelau's north, well, okay, even then Tokelau's north. But
But
how about how
even if
about
you go to
here?
Yeah, even if you go to Manua, it's more east. You're gonna really miss Tonga on the south.
Yes,
You're gonna
yeah.
be closer hitting Niue.
No, and
So
that
Niue should have been Tonga.
that's what we're getting to. And because I agree with you, he is describing the directions correctly, but he is also missing out on what we're saying on what was the cardinal direction. As in, when we look at a map like this one right here, the Western map, when you just look at it and they don't identify north, north is always up,
Mm.
right? So that's kind of like the main cardinal direction. So, but once again, we're saying Manua,
Look, it's
which
more right there where Maya is Ofu.
oh, dude, that's even worse. Like you're
Yeah,
saying,
it's more hit Niue. So
if
Niue
you're
should have been
lucky,
Tonga.
yeah. Hey, and now that I'm looking at this, Shale, I didn't know Niue is bigger than Manua. Anyways, okay, all right. So first off, if we were to use his logic, then this is tu'i Manua, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like to refer to Samoa anymore as Samoa. I'm just going to call them Ha'amoa because
Most part, yeah.
that's what we call them, and that's what we've always referred to them. So we have Ha'amoa over here. So Tonga is not south of Manua. Okay.
Mm,
At best, you're looking at southeast.
mm,
So being detailed in your direction as a master navigator is absolutely critical there. So, and then the other thing is like you're mentioning, and do you think it's worth pulling out Tevita Fale's map, or we can just describe it? I think we just describe it here for
Yeah.
now. The cardinal direction. Imagine. Let's see if I can flip this. No, I can't flip. It's not Google Earth.
No, but
Um,
I was thinking, isn't the way to navigate to Tonga was more using the Ha'amonga, right? Of the constellation of the stars to identify exactly if you were heading to the right island, because each island had its own specific constellation of stars to go. So it wasn't purely like what you said. When you're in the middle of the ocean and you trying to figure out where north is and Tokelau, where Tonga, it's more sophisticated than that.
yes,
So
yes.
that's what I'm saying, because each island had a certain constellation of stars to get them directly where that island. Because if we just go, okay, this is making sure this is north or south. If you're coming from Manua, you're gonna be hitting Niue, and you're gonna be like Columbus when he goes to the newfound world saying this is India, and they call it
Name them
Indian Native
Indians.
American Indians when India
Yes.
was they're far away. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, so number one, that cardinal direction doesn't make sense because like we are saying, Manua, you're going to totally miss Tonga. And so what's the the thinking then for the Cook Islands
Cook
is
Island.
Lalo Tonga.
Hmm.
So what exactly, so there's I don't know. I'm not quite buying it, even if I were to concede it to him. Like you're saying, there's our other data points that don't make sense. But the most important thing I think is, like you mentioned, in the ancient Polynesian kind of directional cardinal direction, south is was the north, right? That was the primary direction. So in a sense, that is where the focus would be, and everything would be focusing towards Tonga, looking southward, and everything would be northward with Tokelau.
Correct.
So that I'm not really kind of into that. And like you mentioned, there's a lot of questions on whether the Tu'i Manua was actually
Older than the
older.
Tuicon.
So this is what they have on. They actually have 42.
Yeah. Could you get the Tongan Tuitonga list, Tua, and just do it side by side so we can let the viewers see, and we can work our way backwards and just see a lot of the gaps within the Tuimanua list.
I wonder how I can put it side by side because, oh, you know
Oh,
what?
okay.
I think I might be able to if I share my screen. If I just share a whole screen and have the two lists right next to each other. But just
Hmm.
keep going on that thought,
Yeah.
Masi, while I try to pull it up.
Yeah. No. So while Tua was bringing up the list, I've compared the lists going from their most recent Tuitonga compared to Dewi Tafale's Tuitonga list and the Tuimanua. There's a lot of gaps, and there's a lot of and granted, maybe this is not the list that the Tui Manua people have put it out, that's everything, but this is what I can this is so far what I found. And from what I found here, these are names that they've accumulated that were title holders, and these names do not predate the Tuitonga list from Tevita Fale, which is 54, which is much of the accurate and corrected version from the Catholics and Shirley Baker's list. So, and here's the thing, I would like say, even if they were going to put their list, you know, we've kind of identified the weaknesses of oral history being passed.
Hmm.
I don't know if they've able to identify where exactly these two Manua people are buried at. Even if they're in Manua or probably somewhere else, but the Tuitonga list is, we can point out, and you like what you went with Terita Fale, where from 1 to 54, where they're all buried, and which location, because Terita Fale has actually identified which burial. And granted, there could be more because we've only found so much in uh, in a time period, and there could be more, but that's so far we can at least say these are the amount of people that are buried in certain areas. So to me, that's a stronger evidence of which empire even existed. We've kind of given the argument that this could be a close relative of a Tangaloa that had some close ties to the Tuitonga. But to say that it originated the Polynesian Empire from Manua, well, we don't see that because we don't see a sophisticated society because they don't have the lists to prove it. They don't have the ruins to prove it. And those are the two big factors for me to suggest that it was just a close relative of the Tuitonga, but not an empire.
Okay. I'm gonna try and put these side by side real quick.
But I also enjoyed, and this is the thing that we wanted. We enjoyed the conversation of I didn't catch his name to it, but what he's suggesting, and that's all we want. We're just
Yeah.
trying to figure out the origin of our people so we can move forward and understanding the greater history of Polynesia.
His
But
name is Setu Henry Taifan, and he
yeah,
seems like a relatively nice guy,
yeah,
right? He's not being rude or disrespectful or anything. It's kind of fun, and this is the
yes,
conversations we need to have.
correct.
I'm going to see if I can share the screen, entire screen, and share. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, I need to change right there.
There we go. There we go.
And let me just zoom out a little bit, try and fit it all into one.
Yeah, and let me get the Lao Fili. Go.
So right now, according to
Mm.
to
So
Wikipedia, there are 42, right?
yeah,
42 Tu'imanua is the last one up to 1924. And then Laufiri Tonga to, what was it, 1860?
I'm looking here that let me see, 1865 was
Yeah.
when the title was eliminated when he passed away.
So basically, we could technically start with this. It looks like a
Hmm.
female
Yeah,
Tu'imanua.
yeah, which went by Yang. Her father was apparently a Palangi.
So 40 versus 52 right there.
Yeah.
So what was your thoughts on that,
So
Messi?
usually we get a base of 25. That's kind of like the base that historians kind of use, 25 years of each title holder. Granted, there's some that could be more and stuff, but that's usually the base. So if we're going 25 years from the Makerita Tuimanua title holder to Laufiri Tonga, and just go from each, so from 40, so what? Then gets to Terea, then goes, that's 10, then goes from, so 44, Terea, then a 34, Talafapite, and then 24, Tuitatui, and then, so it stops at what? Lomi ay Tupua, the first, Uwaki.
Yeah,
It kind of stops
14th, the
there.
14th
Yeah.
Tuitonga.
So then you're missing, then that's what I'm saying. So far they haven't gone back even further. And this is just, then now we've received more evidence of the scanning that Ahu could have been pushed back from
Even to the
450
BC. Yeah.
even to the BC. So that's what I'm trying to say is, to me, this is a strong indicator and evidence of there's no way that these two empires existed at the same time simultaneously. There had to be, Tuitonga was the supreme ruler of all Polynesia. So, and this was probably what I'm suggesting, that we're kind of saying that the Tuimanua was more of a close relative that was respected by the Tuitonga because of probably they were a younger sibling or a close relative of the Tangaloa clan. That's what we're
Yeah.
trying to say.
And then
But
honestly,
that's why I wanted to compare the list.
yeah. And before this conversation before I kind of got into this conversation, I was very open to the idea that the Tu'imanua descended from Tangaloa. Like
Hmm.
a title holder Tangaloa, right? Like Etu Matupua or someone.
Mm.
And that's where Tu'imanua. But the more I dig into it, the fact that the Tu'itonga is possibly older and more than likely older. And from our position, the Tangaloa title ended when the Tuitonga title came into existence. So they could have descended from a Tangaloa, but not a Tangaloa title holder. It would have been
Mm.
maybe
Maybe
multiple generations after, but not a title holder to
yeah.
become the Tuimanua. And
Yeah.
that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Well,
Is
no, I was
yeah,
gonna say to you know what? It couldn't even be a Tangaloa. Maybe they are a descendant of a Tuitonga. That's a little bit older. Because if you think about it, if it stops at the Lomi ai Tupua, maybe they could have been a descendant of Momo, Uluaki. Pegoi, Afulunga, Pegoi, Apunaya, or Kilu Kilua. Who? That's what I'm trying to say. Now, now it could have been a descendant of a Tuitonga
yeah,
clan.
100,
Because I'm telling you,
and
there's
that's what we're
14
getting to.
more. There's 14 more, and yeah, I'm
At
just
least
there.
at least
Yeah.
14 more, because there
Yes.
could be more.
Correct. Correct.
Because these are the ones that Tevita Fale has only been able to identify
Where they're buried.
connected to a langi and a settlement, right?
Correct.
And we're looking at in certain areas of Tongatapu, there's tens of thousands of mounds, and you know, who knows? I mean, yeah, I'm just not as convinced, but even the discussion on, you know, South, even when
Yeah.
we do the South, Manua is not even directly due north of Tonga,
Yes. Well, and that's the
right?
thing.
And yeah,
No, I was gonna say that usually, like what you said, the Polynesians don't have a room to make mistakes when they're traveling between islands. Because if you
yeah,
miss something, you're gonna starve and most likely die. And that was part of the reason why the Polynesian physically has one of the strong physical traits than probably most other ethnic groups. Because usually only the strongest survive, and
it's
that's what.
difficult,
Yes,
hard on the body. Yep.
yes, yeah. But yeah, no, that's kind of my answer for our friend Henry Malo.
No, and that's the thing too is, and you know, and what are your thoughts on his logic that, you know, the Tuimanua was, you know, their primary goal was trade route, right? So trade, and the Tuitonga was primarily dictatorship. Any thoughts on that?
The only story that I've kind of heard that was really a dictatorship was that I think is it Talagai Faiki Ua or something,
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of the dictatorship. But I'm sure some dictatorship has happened. Not every emperor is a nice emperor. There's always going to be some people who's going to be different and maybe pick
Just
on.
like the fahu, you're always gonna
Yes,
get a crazy fahu every once in a while.
yeah, you're gonna get a emperor that's gonna be a little of a bully to some of its extended realms that are very far away. And who knows, maybe. And we kind of had this discussion, if certain island groups didn't come to the Polo Polo or certain Inasi, I'm sure that he would go to and visit that island, maybe bully them. I don't know, who knows. But I, I'm just saying that uh, I don't think the two, like I said, I don't know. I'm not gonna. Once we establish that Manua was an empire, then maybe I'll get a thought. They did try to have some certain trade routes, and we can talk about the Umiti, because apparently when they did these trade routes and everything, then everyone came to Manua to do a Umiti. But once there's some sufficient evidence that, first, if the Manua can be proven, it's older than the Tuitonga, and two, that there is empire that existed, then yeah, we can talk about
Hmm.
its reasons and position of how they kind of run their empire, kind of thing. We know the Tuitonga Empire was mostly run with a Kava, and the women giving birth to the Tuitonga descendants, and they're being Aki wherever they were at in the islands, which certain island groups they were in. So that's how the Tuitonga mostly. There was a little bit here and there with the story with Samoa and some other probably stories, but that wasn't the norm. It just that mostly happened when the empire actually started to shrunk and you're trying to maintain power and you use probably physical and military force.
Force.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm trying to find the one study that, and this is related to his position, that the Tui Manua was focused on trade
Trading
routes.
routes. Yeah.
Have you been to Manua, Masi? Did you ever go there while
No,
you were on your mission?
I've only been to the Tutuila Island. Tutuila, right there. The biggest island in
This
American
one right
Samoa.
here.
No, that's Upolu. Going more
Oh, so
right.
right here.
No. Oh, my right. Your left, Tua. So go to your left, where American Samoa is at. Tutuila. That's the
So
island.
right here.
Tutuila. Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
I
Tutuila is
was there.
American Samoa.
Yeah.
Okay, I've been there. So I've been there. I was on. So you never went to Western Samoa?
No, I did. I've been to Upolu and
Okay.
Savai.
Okay. Oh, you mean that's the furthest east you went,
Yes, I've
was
never gone
American
to Manua.
Samoa.
Yes, that's the
Okay.
furthest east.
So here's my first couple comments on this idea of a trade. Um, and let's say just say Samoa in general. And you can correct me, Masi. You were there for 2 years consistently. I was there for what, 3 weeks, whatever it was.
Mm.
Two things. I can't find the study, but they did a study of stone axes, right? Axe tool to work. When they did it for all the major Polynesian islands, 90% of all the 90 to 95% of all the axes that were found were like within the same island, whether it was Tahiti, 99% were from Tahiti, Samoa, same thing. When they went to Tonga, it was almost like a
Opposite.
55-45
Mm.
mix.
Mm.
They were finding stone from Tahiti, Samoa, Hawaii, all over Polynesia. They
Polynesia.
were finding those stones on Tongatapu, right? One would assume that if Tatui Manua was primarily a trading empire, if you want to call it, or based, you would find a heck of a lot of stone in Manua from all over Polynesia.
Polynesia.
But that from that study, that wasn't the case in
Mm.
Samoa. The other thing that I found kind of interesting is this. When I was in Samoa and I went to the market,
Mm-hmm.
99% of the market was banana and talo. That was
Yeah.
like 99%.
Yeah.
When you're in Tonga, you have what? 8
Hopa.
types of talo, you have 8 types
Kapu.
of plantain, like
Ufi. Yeah.
ufi, endless types of ufi. You find a very diverse amount. And the reason why I'm saying this is that seems to be more of an evidence of a center of an empire that
Mm.
trades,
Mm.
right? That's the
Mm.
trade. And so that to me kind of goes against our brother's position that, oh, the Tui Manua and the Samoan Empire was all about trade. Then we should see a diverse origin of stone tools and a diverse amount of crops found
Mm.
there. And so far from my experience and observation during my time in Samoa, I did not see, and granted, things may have increased by then, but in regards to traditional or commonly used crops, I didn't see a high diversity of crops.
Mm.
Any thoughts on that, or anything I may have missed on that?
No, you're correct. Most of the things that I ate together with your meat and other things was taro and bananas, and that's why most of it is sold that way. While in Tonga, there's a lot more diverse. Occasionally, I'll have they call it it's the ufi, but you know the ufi vow that's really hard. That sometimes the ufi can grow in the vow. There's certain places. I think it's
Mm-mm.
Ewa. It's in Ewa. There's a certain ufi vow kind of thing. I've had that occasionally, but it's not the same ufi like in Tonga when it takes a lot of work,
Well,
a
and
lot of
there's tons of ufi, right? That's the
yes,
thing.
different.
When you say ufi, a Tongan
There's a
will say, "Well, what kind of ufi?" There's like a
correct,
little ton. Same thing as sweet potato. Multiple varieties of sweet potato, diversity
correct.
of options.
And sweet potato is not a popular thing in Samoa. So that's what I'm saying. In Tonga, there's so much variety of like kumala, ufi, kape, even hopa, which is hopa. I did have what Samoans will call hopa. Will call it just faisa moa, which is a bigger version of a banana. But most of the time, it's what they usually sell as a staple substance in Samoa is just the banana and taro. But but yeah, I mean, it's not as diverse as the Tongan markets.
Yeah. And when we say diverse, we're talking about traditionally. These are not Kumala and Ufi and stuff that was introduced, from my
Mm,
knowledge,
mm, mm,
recently within the
mm.
last 100 years. We're talking about it's been there for basically
Yeah,
ever, right? I
yeah.
mean, so I know we got a little carried away with our comments. Let's see if there's any comments from here. Um, let's see.
Comments or questions or maybe something we missed
Yes.
or somebody's see something in a different angle or something or more
So,
evidence than a tuimanua.
yeah, if a civilization were to find our fossils, they'll think we were Chinese. Everything has been made in China, or 100%. That's a big. I'm a big believer in that position, man. If they did a study on Western civilization right now, they'd say, "Oh, they all came from China because everything was made in China," right? Um, uh, let's see here. Here's an interesting comment from God Loves You. For us, Maori, north was down, so kind of like to drop or to plant, different rolau leaf or top place or flat. See, that's the thing, right? The north, in the traditional sense of sensing direction, south was upwards and north was downwards.
Mm, mm,
Yeah, here's an interesting thing. Nacho said that's true. My dad invited a Samoan friend over for barbecue, and he was shocked when he asked, "What is a manioke?" Did you ever have
yeah.
manioke in Samoa?
No, no, but there were some families that had manioke, but they mostly used it to either to feed their animals and stuff, but it wasn't something that they can eat. It was more of like a thing that they can, because most of the Samoans would prefer, most of the hot Moors would prefer talo or bananas. That was like their two go.
Mm,
Occasionally I'll have kape, which is like kaamu, and never had manioke. Um, and occasionally had that ufi. It was they call it. I've only had it like one time, but it was like, and I remember a friend having it, but it's like in the bowl. You can just, I remember
just a
getting it somewhat
wild version.
wild. Yes, it was like a wild grown in the vow kind of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And I mean, even the manioke, there's like what, four different types of manioke in Tonga.
yeah, you can go manioke
So
yenga. There's some whiter ones, which is a different. Yeah.
so interesting. All right, let's get a couple more comments. Let's look and here, let's just look at some of the things here. And here was the comment I gave him. Appreciate the thoughts and your naming of the direction
Mm,
is correct, but the physical evidence we are speaking about is ruins. He does give a response to that, and we'll look
hmm
at that video. Here's Charles Bowono says, I want to speak up about this, but they've been so. This is a comment I get all the time. I'm seeing like, oh, they're so disrespectful.
mm.
It's like the only way to be respectful is to say you're right.
No, and that's
I
and
feel
that's
that's the
why.
way I'm feeling.
No, and that's the
Go ahead,
thing.
Masi.
No, no, you're right. It's almost up to the point of like letting somebody tell their little lie and just like, okay, we'll just believe your lie. But we're not saying it's a lie. I'm just saying, I'm just using it as an analogy. We're not being disrespectful. We're just saying, dude, this is the evidence we have, and we're pretty, we're, I feel like we've been at least some logic into it and having some physical evidence, but we're not. It might be like I said, if people believe this thing that there's an empire that existed so much, then of course they're gonna feel some kind of feel offensive. I think that's more of the word. Feel
Yeah.
offensive instead of we're not. I don't think we're being disrespectful because we're just trying to understand the origin of the Polynesian history. But
No, 100%. And here's the kind of go along with what you're saying. No, the reason of their podcast is they don't want to admit that the Tu'imanua ruled and reigned over all of the Pacific when all scholars have explained it. Okay, we do understand that there was a time where all the scholars said there wasn't a single Tu'imanua who knew how to paddle a boat farther than 200 feet from their own island, because
Mm,
all the scholars agreed that all our ancestors did not know how to navigate. So back then we should have just accepted what the scholars said, right?
mm,
I mean,
mm,
uh, just because the scholars say it doesn't mean that, kind of like I think we just released a short today or yesterday, Masi, of you explaining we have this idea that if someone has a degree or a PhD, then everything they say is 100% facts,
yeah.
right? And that's not the case. Like, that's not what education is about. That's not what the scientific method is about. Though the scientific method is about doubting and asking questions. And yet
Mm.
we're having these type of discussions here. Any thoughts on that, Masi?
um, no, I mean, like I said, the scholars don't really know. They, like I said, the scholars are from Western institution that are as drive to understand the society that we kind of live now. And that's why even scholars who even predicted the world was going to end when they were trying to understand the Mayan calendar, they said, I forgot
Yeah,
the year, the 2012 or something. They said the
2012. The
2012
world's gonna end.
because that was the Mayan calendar. They said they were trying to understand. Look, they didn't even get it right. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Well,
Especially, and this is the critical part when it comes to Western scholars trying to understand a non-Western ethnic group's culture. We're talking about thousands of years that was philosophy and just the way they think is very different. They're most likely gonna be wrong, like 99% of the time they're gonna be wrong. So that's what I'm trying to say, and it's and there's unfortunately a lot of our people are thinking that these guys have the answers, and that usually the people who only go for them for answers is when they're not even sure within themselves about Polynesian history. So that's like their source.
yeah.
So yeah,
In many ways, the blind leading the blind from our perspective. Even though
correct.
we understand a lot of the other people think we're blind and we're crazy. Okay, that's fair. Everybody has a
Yeah,
right to think
yeah,
what they want to think. And I think we'll just end with this video. Masi, we'll just go through these comments. And I think
okay,
we're good. We're just over 2 hours here. And I do, unfortunately, this is the night gig. The bills
yes.
still have to be worked and paid for. Here's a couple other. The royal family knows. What does this word mean, Masi?
It's kind of like a inappropriate curse word.
This part,
It's
this part
yeah,
is the swear. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
these little shiznuts
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um are
He was
commoners who
almost
sit on the
yeah.
ground. Yeah, when royalty are at their functions. Okay, any do you have any response to that, Masi? Any thoughts?
Um, I don't know. I don't know. So what? This guy doesn't know that everyone has a role within Polynesian society. So I don't know what he's trying to say. So the roles are supposed to explain our history instead of us trying to find out for ourselves. So I don't know. I don't know what they're really
Yeah,
trying to say. But like we've already explained our unique history, and that's why we kind of speak on it. We're only the families that have a langi. I know, is it Islander 685-801? His ancestors are probably buried at a Western paid cemetery. Like everybody else, we're at a Langi where the Tuitongas have been buried. So that's where we're coming from. We're not saying this because we have degrees, but we have degrees to make the Western money to have our families live and to do our obligations. We're not coming from that perspective to explain the history. But yeah, we're coming of this because of our heritage, and I think Dad even explained it really well. He's saying usually these things are talking regarding my family, so that's all we're kind of
yeah,
doing is just talking about our family,
and
and this is our family. Unfortunately, is the the reason of the Tongan Empire that used to exist. That's all it is.
Yes. I mean, and this a prime example is when we reacted to Opetitariai's video,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Out of all the things he could have picked and all the stories he could have picked of the Tuitongas and so forth, he happened to pick the one that we are very familiar with for
yes.
very specific reasons. And
Yeah.
so my response is Islander, number one, royal families do not just no single individual knows all things, regardless of whether you're royal or not.
Mm,
Right. And number two, we don't know you, you don't know us. You know, let's just we'll keep it that way. And then here's another comment. Seriously, these two trying to become successful podcasts, but this is the wrong way going about. So I don't know what to say. I mean, I feel we're respectful. We're inviting. We ask people like we've asked multiple right here.
mm.
Please join us. We're just having a conversation. You know,
And
have
didn't
ideas compete.
no, yeah, not and Tua, didn't you say we're gonna have a person that was gonna present on the Tui Manua, but they haven't come yet?
This it was Charles. We've invited
Okay,
Charles. We've
okay,
invited Charles. That's why he mentioned earlier he's wanted to speak up, but he feels we're
okay.
being disrespectful. So he's kind of like, when we're not trying to be disrespectful. I don't know how else to say that. I feel like just because we disagree, therefore we're
Yeah.
being disrespectful. So if I take that position, then all of your guys' explanations of the Tui Manua is disrespectful to me. If so, it doesn't make any sense. If I just say your position is disrespectful, and then I say you're disrespectful, therefore we get nowhere.
Mm,
So yeah.
mm,
And here the podcast, we're asking questions. We want to have conversations. We
mm.
talk about a variety of topics. History is one of them. We talk about, you know, Clyde Moore here says I bring them to Sunday school too much because we talk about church stuff, we talk about sports, we talk about politics. We're just having a conversation.
No, and just
Nah,
to add on, like we're just doing this, but like I said, this is a night gig tour, right? This
yeah,
is more of a hobby. We don't have anything to make this a money generating thing, so we will quit our jobs and do and do this full time. We're just doing this to try to provide a platform for all of Polynesia to understand more about the Polynesian history. That's all it is.
yeah. No, and that's the thing is, unfortunately, and we've explained this 1,000 times. So hopefully the viewers that are consistently watching and listening, Tonga as an independent nation, Samoa as an independent nation, Hawaii, Tahiti, all of the islands, those are Western constructs that came about because the Western powers were cutting up all of the islands, right? And so that's why we refer to Ha'amoa as a quote unquote nation, Hawaii. We we have to recognize that we were all one people in one country. That's what it is.
Mm,
We were all one country. We all spoke basically the same language. We all had the same knowledge. Only one difference, where the capital was.
mm,
And there's a reason why Tonga was able to survive, and it was really the collective experience and knowledge of the entire Polynesian Empire. And Polynesians should look at Tonga's survival as evidence of our ancestors. We should look at it as a collective. It is not all Tonga survived independently on their own. Like we mentioned, there was certain experiences of a Samoan structure that developed because of the Tuitonga's decline
mm,
that Tonga implemented, that Tupou the First leveraged in order to help Tonga remain independent. And if he didn't have that piece of knowledge or experience from Samoa that was being implemented at the right time, at the right place, there's a good chance Tonga wouldn't survive
be
colonization.
correct.
So we
Correct.
should look at what I'm trying to get to is we should look at Tonga as just this independent, isolated country. Tonga is a representation of what our ancestors were able to achieve as a community, as a nation, and we should all be proud of it as one people.
Hmm.
That's what we're trying to say, but everybody wants to kind of cut off Samoa and Ha'amoa and Hawaii. It's like, in a sense, I understand we have to speak that way because that's how we understand the world, but I don't know. Starting to
Um,
go in circles. Any thoughts, Masi?
yeah, no. Did you look at the Manua flag, Dua? It's pretty
No,
interesting. The
no.
Manua flag has a moa on it,
Yeah,
and that
I've seen that. Yes, I've seen it.
yes, and that is close to what the definition of the Tongan word for those group of islands of being a clan of Moa. So
Yes.
so that's what I'm saying. It could be that the Manua Islands are probably the older parts of that group of islands in Upolu and Savai that they still remember that they are the Moa clan or something. There could be descendants of the Manua with that thing, and they've kind of that resembles the Tongan definition of calling Ha'amoa. They're just a
Yes.
Moa clan. So I just
Yes.
thought that was interesting when I was watching some. I think it was the Fest Pack. They had this festival thing that was in Hawaii, and I saw
Yes.
Manua come in, and I saw their flag, and I said, "Hey, I didn't know it was a chicken because I've never seen a flag." I was like, "Dude, that's probably had played some origin to the word Ha'amoa. Maybe that's what I'm just saying because they are literally the clan of Moa. So
Yes. And if I mean, I'm just going off the top of my head, they use the rooster slash chicken as some kind of navigational tool, if I remember correctly, and I don't know, can't remember exactly how or why. Here's another thing, um, right here. Um, yes, Savaii and Hawaii are the same name, and it is in reference to Vaihi,
yes,
is which where we come from. And I know some of our Samoan brothers and sisters didn't like it when I mentioned that because they point to Hawaii and claim that Hawaii is named after Savaii,
yeah.
and that's not our position. Our position is that points to Vaihi. Any thoughts on
Tua.
that, Masi?
No, and there's a place here where I took the Vita Fale. There's a place called Vaihi in New Zealand, which is called Waihi, and we went there. It's right by the kind of ocean coastal area of New Zealand. So there's other words that's reference to, Hawaii, even within Tonga. So I think Dad even mentioned in places in Tonga Tapu and Ha'apai. So
Yes,
it's not, it's just more people just think it's Hawaii and Hawaii, but there's because they're in
all over Polynesia.
they're all over Polynesia, even here in New Zealand. It's about 2 hours away from where I live in South Auckland. I can go, and that's a reference to Waihi, where we
Yeah.
originated from, the
Well,
Americas.
and that's the other thing too, is because of Tongan oral history says we come from Vaihi, the faraway land. Savaii is not far away from how our ancestors used to travel, right?
Yes, yeah,
That's
yeah,
like next door neighbor. When we're thinking about faraway land, when they're consistently traveling 4,000, 5,000 miles,
yeah,
I'm sorry, but Savaii, the island of Savaii is not far away. If Hawaii wasn't the faraway land, then definitely Savaii is not the faraway land.
yeah.
Here's Nacho. Nacho's got some jokes here. Supposedly that moa was supposed to be the giant moa, but someone had too much kava and pictured a chicken.
Hey, who knows? Because the big giant
The
moas in New
moa.
Zealand, and isn't
Yeah.
there like a place in Tonga, is it Fonua Moa or something? The road Moa, named after the big moas in New Zealand. I forgot the name, but that's another
Hmm.
deep history. That usually when people would come to Tonga, they had this road of the moa because they brought. I don't know if it's some Tongan navigators, Polynesian navigators that went and got some moa from New Zealand, but who
Yeah.
knows, man?
Where is Hawaii now? In my opinion, Tonga, Samoa, and the islands are the surviving mountains of Hawaii. It's underwater, the Great Pacific Ocean. Any thoughts on that, Masi, where Vaihi is?
Um, My position is Vaihi is from the Americas. I believe it could be um, somewhere from southern Mexico. There's a place called Chacula, which can be a reference of kula being very important color for Akis. Red is a very big significance. So it could be somewhere from there, Dua, but I don't know specifically where exactly in the Americas. But Waihi is what I mean of Hawaii, which is more of a modern name to compared
Mhm.
to Waihi, is from the Americas. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't think it would be under the Pacific Ocean, but I don't know. That's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely. I same position, and some of the reasons why we point that way is the mound building that is found on Tongatapu and so forth is found throughout the Americas. The
The
Sun Gate, the
Sun Gate.
Ha'amonga, is also found in the
Mm,
Americas. The same kind of political structure of kings are found in
mm,
the Americas. So there are just a lot of different layers of evidence. You can point, some people point to some of the agricultural, the sweet potato. Some people even um, point to genetic. There are some genetic ties, and a lot of relations to that. So that's kind of the position we take right now.
mm.
Brown monk here. We came to the direction of the rising sun. You can see the gate of the sun. Yes, we definitely have that same thought as well. Brown monk.
Mm,
Um, if we look at the older ancient maps from the 1500s earlier, what we know as the Pacific now was land. It's now flat. I have seen some of that. Chanel is I saw an article that, like New Zealand, that North Island and South Island are basically the tops of a mountain,
mm,
and that the one of the lost continents is that, and that it got flooded. But I did read an article, something similar to that. Um, we are the people of the sun. There's a lot of truth to that. I mean, there's a reason why, in poetic terms, the king of Tonga, whether it was the Tui Tonga or Tangaloa or even the
mm,
Tupou family now, they're
mm.
referred to as the sun in
Correct.
poetic terms. And even when the Mataapules speak, they'll say go la'a o Tonga, and that's in many ways a poetic and symbolic reference to the king of Tonga.
Mm,
Hey, Chanel, I appreciate the comments, appreciate the interactions.
Malo Chanel.
Let's see here. I think, yeah, we pretty much, well, let me see. Think, yeah, that's all the comments on this, I believe. Yeah. So, Malo, everyone,
Mm.
we're coming to the end. Masi, any closing thoughts? Anything you want to share?
No, appreciate everyone's interaction. Malo, this is just a discussion, just trying to know more about our history. Thank you, Dua, for driving this. You're the reason why we have this. I appreciate everything you do, and yeah, that's about it. Appreciate everyone's interaction. Wish everyone the best. We talked about some important things regarding the pressures and some of the holistic well-being of our people kind of overseas, and probably in the islands, just be more positive and just be able to find a source of some positivity to maintain a positive perspective and good well-being, because life is only gonna get, unfortunately, harder, because that's how it is. Looks like every year brings with new technology. There's a new way to deal with it, good and bad. So we just have to be more capable people to try to navigate that, just like our ancestors navigating the Pacific Ocean. But no, malo everyone's participation tonight. Malo ofat.
Okay, Malo, Masi. Um, my closing thoughts, man. I really enjoy the interactions and the questions from the viewers and the listeners. It's always fun. I love these digital Kava sessions. I think we're settled. That's going to be the name of our lives, our digital Kava sessions here. We appreciate everyone's interaction. And really, from my perspective, the podcast kind of forum is a representation of how Kava was for our ancestors, right? Because when you had a Kava, a Kalapu or a Kava session with our ancestors, everybody came together, everyone shared ideas, they discussed what was they were seeing in their neck of the woods, and it was that information sharing and knowledge sharing that really propelled our people for thousands and thousands of years. And that's what a podcast does. It really is a bringing together of ideas, of minds, of questions and thoughts, and we have a discussion. So for me, our ancestors have been doing podcasts for thousands of years. We're just taking the modern day podcast system and merging it with our Kava tradition and approach, and that was really what made Kava valuable, was the bringing together of the people. And so once again, greatly appreciate it. We've seen a big increase in the listens on our audio podcast. Once again, we're going to cut up these lives and make them series or episodes on the podcast. And you can find those on Amazon, Audible, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. So feel free to add that to your phones. That's just another way in case you aren't able to catch us, because we are the night birds, right? We have to do this. This is the night gig, the side gig. And so not
Unless it's
everybody can be here.
yeah, no, unless it's a holiday that New Zealand and America falls on the same day, and we can do it during a day when everyone is not sleeping. But yeah, this is what we do to navigate, because like this is not easy being a time difference all the way from Texas and New Zealand. It's a huge time difference and also different days, so we do our best.
But once again, appreciate everyone's time. Stay curious and always, I think it was Benjamin Franklin who always said, question everything with boldness. And that's what we're doing.
Oh
Question
wow, I
with
like that.
boldness.
Oh
So
wow.
with that being said, have a great evening. And until our next digital Kava session, stay safe. Peace.
Claro.